Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Natural Infrastructure and Growth Scrutiny Panel. Before we start these proceedings, may I bring your attention to some housekeeping matters. There is no expected fire alarm testing today. Therefore, if the fire alarm does sound, please follow the signs to the nearest fire exit and meet at the fire assembly point in Civic Square. Can I also ask that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting and that it's switched off when you're not using it so that our online listeners can hear too. Your mobile devices are turned to silent, and as you know, this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeat viewing. By entering the Warspite room and during the course of the meeting, councillors are consenting to being filmed and to the use of those recordings for webcasting. And then finally, welcome to this new municipal year, and welcome to all of our new councillors sitting on the panel. It's great that we had the opportunity to meet each other and have our City Living Framework tour, City Centre tour, ahead of this meet, and I hope that stands us in good stead for today. So, without further ado, I've had some apologies so far. So we've got Councillor Kelly, who's the Vice Chair. She gives her apologies, she's on leave. And thank you to Councillor Paul Hagan for subbing. Councillor Bannerman, who has recently had a new baby, isn't here today. And thank you to Councillor Morton for subbing in that instance. Elliot, have we had any other apologies?
Through you, Chair, just to clarify that the sub for Councillor Bannerman is Councillor Penrose. That's a mistake on my part. Thank you. No further apologies.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, in that sense then, can we have declarations of interest? Do members have any declarations of interest in respect of the items on the agenda today? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. I will raise a non-disclosable interest. I work for the Ministry of Defence on a project which is very heavily linked to our naval base and other naval bases, and clearly there are comments about the naval base in here, but that won't preclude me from voting or doing anything.
Thanks very much, Councillor Wood. That's noted. Okay, moving on then. So minutes. Do members have any corrections in respect of the minutes from the 29th of Jan, and we've got two sets of minutes in front of us today, and the 4th of Feb? No, okay. If not, ever hold your breath. I will propose that we agree them as a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Gosling. Can I have a show of hands to approve them? Very much. Unanimous, thank you. Yeah. Oh, you didn't, sorry, Councillor Wood.
No, I abstained.
You abstained. Sorry, would anybody like to abstain? Councillor Wood, you can raise your hand now. Thank you. Anybody against? No, thank you. Okay, Chair's urgent business. As this is my first session as Chair, there is no urgent business today, so we'll note that. Which takes us on to Glenn and your Director of Business Plans update, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think this will be a quick one. It's just to inform the committee that this year all committees will be looking at the relevant corporate and directorate business plans. This is for the year ahead, where we're going to bring together kind of performance information, what the directorates are doing in terms of linking to the strategic and corporate vision of the organisation, but also the place where we'll be talking about the numbers and the impacts that pressures within year will be having on the medium-term financial plan. So it'll be a comprehensive approach, and we'll be bringing that business case, subject to conversations about the work programme, hopefully to the next meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to do the introduction and then pass over to colleagues. So I'll do those introductions at the end before I hand over to them. Really pleased to be here to introduce you all to the City Living Framework, which is a really exciting piece of work about the future of our city centre, about getting more people living in our city centre as they did a long time ago. I think anyone who attended the opening of Armada Way on the 4th of July and subsequently can really see the transformative impact that investment in the public realm and into our city centre can have. There's a real buzz around Armada Way and actually the rest of the city centre since then too. And it's great for the economy too. Footfall has already been up. There were 20,000 more people in the city centre on that opening day. There were 10,000 more the day after, and the footfall figures for the couple of weeks since then have been up as well. So it's great for the city, it's great for businesses, and they can see that Plymouth is really a city on the up. And that's on top of, public realm improvements in Old Town Square, New George Street, Royal Parade, Civic Square, the Community Diagnostic Centre, and stuff still to come, the Civic Centre, the Babcock Capability Centre in the old House of Fraser building too. But these are plans and projects that take years of planning, and we're here now presenting the City Living Framework to you at a very, very early stage of what is going to be a journey of up to 20 years for what we want the future of our city centre to be like. So there's a lot that we still don't know about our plans. That's why we've got this brilliant team with me today who are going to be bringing those plans together. There's going to be huge opportunity for engagement from you as members, for the public, and any key stakeholders in the city who want to input into the work that we're doing. Plymouth has got a really good history in terms of visions for our city centre, with the Abercrombie plan, with the Mackay vision too. And this is a new vision for a city centre that is really fit for the future. So we're really interested to hear your thoughts, to hear your questions, and at the very starting point of this project. So I'll introduce you to the team that I'm with today. We've got Stuart and Martin, who most of you probably know from the project team on the council. We've also got Glenn, who is from Howes Architects, and he's one of our key consultants on this project. We've got Alex as well, who is from May, another architecture firm, and he's going to be working on the city centre core programme of this work. And we've also got Jim online from WSP, who is leading our team of consultants who are pulling this framework together. And we've also got Joe Wharton next to me from Homes England, who are obviously a really key partner in everything that we're doing in the city centre at the moment. Everyone that we've got here with us today are really leaders in their field. They're internationally renowned experts in what they do, in architecture, in placemaking, and in master planning. And we're very, very lucky to have them, but we're very, very lucky to have their excitement for Plymouth. We did a walk around in the city centre last week just to show them the opportunities and the parts of the city centre that we're looking at for this work. And they are just as excited about this as we are as a council. So I'm really looking forward to you being able to hear from them about their thoughts on our city centre. And obviously they'll be able to answer lots of your questions too. So I will hand over I think to Martin. I think we're going to play a short video and we'll have a presentation and then we'll take your questions at the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
So I've always said that the regeneration of Plymouth City Centre it's the most exciting regeneration project in the UK. And it's already started, it's already underway. We've seen what's been happening in Armada Way. It's a very extensive change. People are enjoying it, people are loving it already. And it's the first in a series of what will be a set of very important developments and changes in the city centre, which will be to the benefit of everyone, people who are already here and people who will be the future residents of Plymouth. We've got an opportunity to enhance what Abercrombie imagined for the city centre, to enrich the bits that work well, but also repair the bits that don't, and actually reintroduce city living that was once known in this city core, bring it back into the heart and diversify the use and the offer within the city centre.
And I think the real opportunity is to grow the city back to what it was over 100 years ago in terms of scale and pride. And so the neighbourhoods and the districts such as Stonehouse and Coxside are yet again part of the city, and we're proudly reuniting them, and they're walkable, they're part of the fabric of the city. And I think also that the moment has to be now. But now what you've got is this amazing opportunity with the investment coming in to actually achieve this transformation. And you know, it's not impossible at all. In fact, it's very, very possible, because all the ingredients are right to do this. All the ingredients that you need to unlock these opportunities are here. Even where we're standing, we've got greenery, we've got parts of the city which are almost there. So it's just connecting them through and making the next step, which you can do.
I think for me, we're now at the start of a really exciting opportunity. It's going to be the biggest change that Plymouth has seen since the post-war period, and we're now at a point where we need people in Plymouth to really get on board with this and see that this is going to happen. We've already had the excitement of Armada Way opening a few days ago, and a couple of years ago people were saying that would never happen, and we're telling you now that is just the start. There is more to come. There's a lot more excitement to come, and we want to hear from people about what they want from living in a city centre, what they want our city centre to be, to make sure it's a city centre that is livable and it's ready for the future too. And this really is an exciting moment, and we want people in Plymouth to really buy into it, really get behind it, and be as excited for it as we are.
So we've started the future of Plymouth. A great opportunity to talk about the next steps for Plymouth City Centre. And this City Living framework, asking people what they want to see in their city centre going forward, is really, really important. So if you get the chance to come to Plymouth, come to the Central Library, where there's some lovely people are desperate to hear from you about what you'd like to see, what your views are. That's what we want to hear now. We don't want to talk at you. We want to listen to you.
If you want high density living, which I guess we have to have in the city centre, then you have to have things on your doorstep. You want to be able to walk that bit safely and in a great environment.
So things like the walk-in centre that they've just built down in the East End, it's very important. And to have pharmacies and dentists, they can easily be fitted in. You know, there's lots of empty shops so that people can find these things right on their doorstep.
You need a life here. You need people who are living here, actually investing something in the area. And I can imagine in the evening, especially on a nice summer's evening when it's warm, you can have a real life here. Things are on our doorstep, things are close by. We don't have to rely on car or public transport. We can walk places at the moment, which is great. So I'm really enjoying that.
For me, I thought when we did the bus pull-ins and all that up in Royal Parade, that was a lot better than what was said. And that made an instant improvement, I thought.
More jobs in the city centre, more life in the city centre. Yeah, homes, shops, restaurants, eateries, going down to the sea. I think that would make it a great place to live.
We need to care because we need to invest in the future for our families and for our children to make Plymouth the best possible place to live, work and be.
You should care about your community. You should be proud of it and open about it and happy to show it off to people that come here.
It's important for us to listen to people and understand what they really want and what they feel the future of the city looks like. And then we can take all of that learning, all of those great ideas, those great thoughts, those perspectives, and we can put this into the future master plan. This will go out to consultation at the end of the year, so people have a genuine chance to have their voices heard and then see how that can be turned into reality to make Plymouth even better than it is today.
Thank you, Councillor Smith and team. Who's up next?
Okay, Chair, I'm just going to load up the presentation and then we'll pass over to our architects here. Okay, thank you. I think Alex and Glenn are going to take the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Howells from Howells Architecture.
And I'm Alex Ely from May. So let's start. I think first let's recognise and remember that Plymouth is a really fantastic ocean city. And it's partly its ocean heritage and seafaring heritage that really intrigues us. It was where Darwin returned with his theories of evolution. And actually, cities evolve. That's how cities change. They're not replaced. They're not whole-scale sort of redeveloped. They change gradually, and they respond to conditions and needs. And that's very much our intention with this new framework, that we build on what we already have that works, the assets of a city, and enhance it and enrich it for a new city living.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I've worked on a few of these 20-year projects because I'm quite old. In fact, I studied in Plymouth. I came here 47 years ago. And I've worked on a few of these big city projects which have set out to transform cities. Some of them have done brilliantly, not all of them have. So the only advantage about getting old is you can actually learn from it a bit. But what we're here to talk about today is really important. And it's not about architecture at the beginning. It's not even about design or roads or the number of homes. All of these things are important. But what I think is vital is there's a clear sense of purpose about what this is trying to achieve. And then the framework delivers what the city needs to do to thrive and grow and do all the things. I haven't seen that film before, where all the voices of people who live in the city, what they want from it. And so it's an amazing opportunity. And so it needs an ambitious idea that can positively transform the city, not just for the people in the room, but for the next generation, the generation beyond that. And actually, there's no reason Plymouth couldn't be one of the best waterfront cities in the world. It's got all the ingredients. And how, if we do all this right, how will it be different over the coming years? Attractive to all generations. Not many of my fellow students stayed in Plymouth. There weren't the opportunities. Be a city where people decide to stay and set down roots, invest, spend their money, are proud of it, with better jobs. And of course, that will need great quality housing that people can afford. But I think key to this is a renewed civic pride that it takes along everybody. This isn't being done to the city like the Abercrombie plan. This is something that the city are doing for themselves, and the people are part of and supportive of it. And so we want it to be greener, healthier, better connected. So how are you going to do that? I mean, what we've been talking about, and the biggest theme is, for me anyway, is that growing the city back to its former size before the war. I mean, that's a great aerial picture there. So often people think of the city and it's described as being the thing within the ring road, and it's not. I've got some, looking at, we all know the city. About 1900, before the wars, it was 3 towns connected by Union Street, and it was an east-west city, like most coastal cities were. And each one of these were proud, thriving, different neighborhoods. And I think to take the city on the journey is to think beyond the ring road and to reconnect and to grow the city to what it was over 100 years ago. And of course, part of that is then making connections, but it's also not losing the sense. This is an amazing slide, this one here, if you just look at it, because it's not all happening in the green in the middle. The city core that many people think is the city centre. In fact, there's a sign out near the Octagon which says city centre that way. And it used to be the city centre. So the idea that we get used to reclaiming the city centre, which is all those different districts, and they'll all be different. So some of them might be higher rise, some of them will be lower rise. But what they all are proud neighbourhoods built on their heritage and renewing the confidence and the pride to live not just in the defined city centre within the ring road, but that it grows further. So in conclusion, on the headlines, I think what you've got here is a once in a lifetime generation to turn this city into something that it should be and once was. And perhaps the biggest risk is missing the chance to do it, actually. There's going to be lots of conversation, as there always is in my experience, about roads, housing numbers, where the money gets spent, all the detail. But the opportunity here, if you take nothing else away from this initial sort of my view of it, this is the most exciting project I've worked on in many, many years. Not because it's done, but because of the potential to make a difference. And it's relatively straightforward. I don't know many cities I've worked in which have got these assets that you can just connect and make the most of. So it's an amazing opportunity.
So this diagram or this map shows that actually the housing that Plymouth needs in response to huge investment can take place across the whole city. The city core has to take its share of that. And actually, before the war, it was a residential neighbourhood, and that's been hollowed out. That wasn't the intention of the Abercrombie plan. So the city core can support diversity. It has a thriving retail offer. It's got growth of office and commercial space, especially with the likes of Babcock moving in. But actually what it doesn't offer is much residential. So the city core can take its share, but also it offers an opportunity to repair some of the problems of the Abercrombie, and I'll come on to those. But also, as this diagram shows, improve the connection north to the railway and south to the Hoe. Next slide. So the tone and ambition of Armada Way improvements is set to the level and standard that we should expect for new development within the city core. And we very much want to build on that. Abercrombie's plan was very much a Beaux-Arts plan. It was about this vista down to the Hoe. But actually, when you look back towards the railway, it's underwhelming. There's an opportunity to improve the gateway between the station and the Armada Way, particularly around Armada Way North. There's also opportunity to repair the bits that don't work particularly well. Abercrombie had in mind many more connections through the city, more like the southern part of the city around the Barbican, where you have a choice of routes and journeys through the city, whereas actually the scale of the urban blocks makes actually movement around the city core quite difficult, particularly around the edges, around Western Approach and some of the scale of the roads. And if we can improve the connections across the Stonehouse, arguably it improves the quality of life for those residents in Stonehouse who want to come into the city for their everyday needs, as well as obviously the lives for the new residents of the core as well. And there's some great heritage. So it's not just the heritage of the Abercrombie plan, but kind of beautiful kind of historic buildings, but also kind of wonderful modernist buildings that can adaptively be reused. It's coming out of the consultation already that residents are wanting to see empty buildings repurposed, not necessarily just replaced. And so that kind of comes back to that idea of Darwin actually evolving and adaptively reusing what's already there. And then improving the experience for pedestrians and car drivers alike. So in places, the car dominates, and I think there's an opportunity to create a better balance and experience for those residents in the surrounding neighbourhoods that you've just seen in the map, but also the residents within the core itself, and balancing that need for to get good journeys around, whether it's public transport or ensuring that there's kind of sufficient capacity for parking and on the roads. And then importantly, city living has to be also about the sort of meeting everyday needs. It's not just about putting housing into the city core. It's actually ensuring, as was mentioned by, I think, some of the residents in that video, that it's supported by social infrastructure. There's good access to healthcare and other facilities and cultural uses that meet your everyday needs, as well as providing a destination for those coming into the city core. So I'm going to hand over to Jim now.
Thank you. Colleagues, can I just check that you can hear me okay?
Yep,
can indeed.
Yes, okay, thank you. Just to build on what my colleagues have been saying there, one of the key things that's really acting as an impetus for this regeneration project in the city centre is everything that's happening with the economy of Plymouth. And that's linked to defence and security, the importance of that sector. It's a sector that's growing. It is becoming very important for all sorts of reasons that I'm sure we're all aware of, but that means economic opportunity. It means opportunity for innovation, opportunity for new jobs, a growing workforce, a workforce that will have to grow very substantially. Population will continue to increase, and this gives the opportunity to create a viable housing market in the city centre, to regenerate the city centre and create a central area that is in keeping with every other very important city in the UK, a place to live and work, but a place that also provides inclusive, sustainable opportunities for the whole cross-section of the population of Plymouth. Next one, please, Martin. So our work on the City Living Framework consists of two main outputs, a development framework, which is a strategic output, a strategic plan covering the whole of the city centre area, that wider area of neighbourhoods that Glenn was talking about, and that piece of work is led by Glenn and his team. And the second piece of work is a more detailed master plan for the core area, the core central area, the Abercrombie area, and Alex and his team are leading that part of the work. They are linked very, very closely together and also linked to other parts of the overall framework around delivery, around inclusion, around social values. So a cohesive, comprehensive piece of work which will be framed around these two particular outputs. Next one, please, Martin. I'd like to just talk you through the process that we're going through. The first phase, it's a 3-phase process. The first phase is a phase we've now completed, and we've called that the Discover phase. And that's really a phase of baselining, understanding, gathering all of the information, all of the evidence that tells us the full story, gives us a full picture of how Plymouth as a city, and the city centre in particular, operates socially, environmentally, economically, in infrastructure terms. That's provided the baseline, the evidence base, and we're now moving into the second phase, which is a hugely important phase, which we call the Define phase, and that's the phase where we create the new vision for Plymouth City Centre. It's a hugely exciting phase that we're going into now. It's a phase that will involve a lot of engagement, and which will produce these 2 key outputs: the strategic framework for the city centre and the master plan for the core area. The final phase, from the end of the summer onwards towards the end of the year, is what we call the Deliver phase, which will be the finalisation of those plans. A lot of thinking around delivery programme and delivery mechanisms, how we actually bring forward housing and development in the city centre, make it commercially viable, but also a formal public consultation on those plans as well. So those are the 3 phases. We're in phase 2 now, which is the visioning phase, and we're kicking that off. Next one, please, Martin. And this vision phase, this second phase, a big part of that is engagement, engaging with people, institutions, communities, stakeholders, all through the city. It's something we've been doing all the way through the first phase, the baselining, Discover phase, which has really been a kind of listening form of engagement. And we've also had an opportunity to engage with people through the opening of Armada Way, which attracted huge numbers of people, and we've had a presence in the Central Library, and that's really been around listening to what people have to say about how they feel about Plymouth City Centre, being in the city centre, coming into the city centre, engaging with what the city has to offer, what they see as important and what else they would like to see. We're going to move from listening to much more of a shaping kind of process of engagement, where it's working with all of the stakeholders and communities and the public to think through a vision. What should the future of Plymouth City Centre be? What should it contain? What should it encapsulate? How should it express itself? There are various aspects of the engagements running all through the summer. So we have public drop-in sessions at the Central Library. They've already started. They kicked off with the Armada Way opening, and our colleagues, our team members and Plymouth City Council colleagues will be on hand on these dates to answer questions, to proactively engage with people, to solicit views, to solicit opinions, to explain what we're doing all the way through the summer, and the information that sits behind that, it will be available throughout, so people can drop in at any time. The scrutiny meeting itself is part of the engagement process. We have members' workshops, which will take place tomorrow, which will be conducted by Glenn and Alex, who will stay on in the city. We also have a series of stakeholder co-design workshops, where we bring important stakeholders together, representing different institutions, different organizations, public and private, for 2 different workshops where we kind of evolve and develop different aspects of the vision. I'll say a little bit more about that later. We've already had a series of workshops with Plymouth City Council officers across all the different aspects of how the city operates, how it functions, and we'll be following up with those officers as we go through the summer. And we also have a series of community sessions which are being planned. They're still being planned, actually, in order that we get them right and we get them in the right places. They'll start off in Devonport, but we'll be in other locations as well. And those also involve engaging community representatives and community organisations, so that they in turn can continue the conversation with their own groups, their own constituencies, their own neighbourhoods as we move through. All of that engagement will create a huge body of information, opinion, perception, which we will bring into the formulation of the citywide framework and the city centre master plan, and they will be hugely important inputs to creating those 2 outputs. When we go into the phase 3, the delivery phase, then the plan and the master plan will be subject to a formal public consultation, which will adhere to all of the usual rules around public consultation. Next one, please, Martin. In terms of the drop-in opportunities at the Central Library, we have information. You can see it here on boards which explain what we're doing, what the project is, what the aspirations for the project are, why we're doing it. There's an opportunity for people to express views, to stick notes on boards about what they think is important in the city. This was this kind of listening stage that we've been working through up to now, and also to kind of explain what they think is important moving forward, whether it's a housing thing or a transport, environment, but getting people to kind of prioritize what they think is important. As we move forward, those drop-ins will be a little bit more, they'll become more structured around some of those opportunity areas that Glenn and Alex were talking about on that map, those broad neighborhoods, which altogether make up the wider city centre. We'll be asking people what they think about those wider neighborhoods, what they think should happen there, if any of them should be prioritized. So this drop-in opportunity, it's moving now from just listening to what people think about the city to kind of more proactively eliciting some views on some of those priority neighborhoods, including the core heart of the city as well. Next one, please, Martin. So we've already been there in the Central Library. You might have seen lots of people in yellow t-shirts trying to get opinions from the public. So we had drop-in availability as a right of way opening was launched. We had quite a lot of people coming in expressing views on all sorts of things and what they want to see in the city. Very positive response to Armada Way itself. Not just as a place, as a physical place that's improved, but what it also means for the ability to get things done in Plymouth and to realise major projects successfully. So a lot of positive feedback. Next one, please, Martin.
Jim, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt. Have you got many more slides left? Because I'm very conscious, timing-wise.
Okay, I'm going to go very quickly. You can move on from this one. Actually, we've seen enough people in yellow t-shirts.
Thank you.
Next one. Some of the things that have come out from that, those drop-ins, housing is important, green spaces, public transport, seeing more public transport, feeling safe in the city. It's a theme that keeps coming back. Importance of culture, importance of heritage. People talking also about looking at homelessness as an issue as well. Next one, please, Martin. The stakeholder workshops, which we're planning, we've got 2 of those. They're sequential. So the first one brings together important stakeholders, really focused on vision, agreeing what a vision is across different themes. Next one, please, Martin. Some of the themes to be explored in those stakeholder workshops: the nature and quality of economic growth, social life, again, housing, what kind of housing, where should it be, who is it for, culture and heritage, transport, more public transport, infrastructure, both physical and social, the real estate market, rejuvenating the real estate market so that it brings in more investment. These things will all be discussed with the stakeholders, and then we'll have a second session which follows on from that one. Having established the vision, this is now how to realise the vision, particularly linked back to those very important neighbourhoods that are emerging as being critical to the future of the city centre, how they evolve in themselves and how they're connected together. Next one, please, Martin. And that's it from me.
Thank you. So, Martin, any more from the team, Matt?
I don't think so, Chair. Nothing from myself, unless Joe has anything more to add from your side. Yeah, just straight into questions then.
Perfect, thank you. So I think from my side, sort of listening, and particularly listening to yourself, Glenn, that made me just think back to my own childhood and being interested in the heritage of this city, as a transatlantic hub for international crossings. And what a fantastic reputation it had internationally at that point. We were very grateful to have a tour, which Joe came along to as well, to brief us on this ahead of this meeting, which was really, really fascinating. Before I take questions, I do just need to tick off, though. I mentioned that Helen Kelly, the Vice Chair, is not here today. It is common at this panel, if the Vice Chair isn't in attendance, that it's at the Chair's discretion whether to nominate a Vice Chair for the occasion. In this instance, if you're happy, I'm happy that Glenn's here to capture those of you that have questions today. Is everybody happy with that as a way forward? Brilliant, thank you. Okay then, questions please. Okay, I've got Councillor Goslin first.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentations. You've now completed phase 1. I didn't see anything in this report or your presentations on the findings of that phase 1. You're now a third of the way through the project. So can you give me a summary of the main take-home findings from phase 1 around the baselining and other aspects of phase 1 and how those have fed through to shape phase 2? Thank you very much.
Shall I take that one initially?
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, that's a big question that needs a big answer. We did a very detailed baseline. What have we found? What can I tell you that we found in as succinct a way as possible? We find an economy that's growing, that has huge potential, that has potential for immense innovation linked partly to defence, but to many other things: marine autonomy, advanced manufacturing, creative industries, all sorts of things. But an economy that's also subject to an ageing demographic, an ageing workforce, and significant numbers of people, including young people, who are very distant from the labour market and who need to be supported to come back in. This is not unusual in the UK context. We find this in many, many cities. We also see a city centre which physically is underutilised, and could be, the spaces of the city centre could be used much more effectively to bring a more diverse range of businesses, more diverse range of both economic and social activities into the city centre, again, to bring it closer to what we see in other major cities of the United Kingdom. We see a lot of discussion around how people move around the city, a desire to see more public transport, and the ability to use the city at all times of day and feel safe doing so, to be able to walk around, navigate the city and feel safe. We also see the increasing importance of culture and cultural institutions, cultural industries in the life of the city. The Box, a hugely ambitious project which has become very successful and is now award-winning and a high-profile project. And it adds to the attractiveness of the city as a visitor destination and just a place to be and enjoy. The role of the universities, multiple universities that have grown and extended, creating more academic activity, but also business activity linked to very advanced industries such as defence, and creating more impetus for economic activity. We see a real estate market which has huge opportunity, but where values are quite suppressed and therefore create kind of critical weaknesses in how we might engage investors and developers, and therefore stimulate more economic growth, more real estate development in the city centre. This is linked partly to things like the construction supply chain, which is quite limited, construction workforce, which has challenges, ageing workforce, ageing demographic. I think in summary, huge opportunities that can be unlocked, and part of what we are doing with our piece of work is looking at the unlocking mechanism, which is partly about specific investments, specific projects in particular places, the sequencing of them, working with partners, including Homes England, funding things that trigger wider development and wider change, but also ensuring that that change has multiple positive impacts for people who come and take new jobs in the defence industry, but for people who spent their entire lives in the city and who need to improve their lives by experiencing a greater level of social welfare and prosperity. My colleagues, Glenn and Alex, may also have views on the baseline.
No, I think that's absolutely perfect. Thank you, Jim. That gives us a great detailed response. Councillor Goslin, do you have any follow-up to that?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll let the discussion continue. Thank you very much for the response.
Okay, next on the list, I've got Councillor McClay.
Thank you, Chair. What an absolute privilege to be in this room and hearing about the future shape of the city. It is incredible to be thinking 20 years ahead to what we want the city to look like and to be engaging in those conversations really proactively. I think where I see that privilege is also thinking about those that might not feed into those conversations as readily as those around this table. So what are we doing to reach out to communities that are traditionally seen as harder to reach, or we make less effort in reaching them, is perhaps a better way of thinking about it, because I really welcome the pop-up spaces in the library, but I also want to see us out in communities, particularly those that will be directly impacted by these changes, to gather their views for what their hopes for the future vision of the city is.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councillor McClay. Yeah, we've put a lot of thought and effort into trying to make sure we're reaching the right community. So, yeah, we're attending the Devonport Open Day. As we've seen, we are going to be arranging workshops via Nudge. So in Union Street and Stonehouse, we are looking to have a marquee up at Astor Park in the East End, and then also on Mutley Plain as well. So kind of covering those compass points around the framework area. We have a list of about 60 stakeholders who are going to be engaging in these stakeholder workshops. And as part of that, as Jim mentioned in his presentation, we have provided briefing packs to certain stakeholders who are community representatives. They're able to go back to their community, brief them, receive their feedback, and then they can use that feedback to give to these stakeholder workshops. So I'm hoping that we're covering quite a broad base through that.
As a supplementary, Chair, thank you, that's really helpful to hear. What would also be helpful to hear is what kind of reporting we might expect to see at the other side of this. So what kind of demographics we've been able to engage with, and also what's the hopeful level of engagement that we're hoping to achieve. I think we're now at something like 400-ish responses. How many responses are you hoping to get to, and are we kind of on track to get there?
Yes, I might seek Jim's view on this, but I know from feedback from WSP that actually the number of people that we've engaged with so far has exceeded perhaps what we would expect in one of these typical kind of exercises. So on the 4th of July, we spoke to 150 people. I think on these kind of drop-in events in a library, it's ranging from around 40 to 80 people attending a day. So that's really positive. I think the idea with the drop-in locations elsewhere in the city is that we're trying to aim for them to be in high footfall areas. So we're not waiting necessarily for people to come out to us. We're going out and trying to ask people to come and seek their views. In terms of demographic data, a lot of that's been recorded through the Commonplace website when people provided their information there. At the moment, we're just recording the number of people who are attending these drop-ins.
Brilliant, thank you both. Next on the list, I have Councillor Dan.
Mine's a good follow-on question from Lauren. So that was my original question, but just listen to the presentation. It's made me think much wider about this, about engagement, because we talk about those people that we don't engage with. So somebody said, think beyond the ring road. I can't remember who said that, but all your maps only show the city centre out to the ring road. Actually, this is the centre for the whole of Plymouth and those northern communities as well. So all those communities that grew up post-war, who live in those northern communities, don't necessarily come into town. So all your engagement, as far as I can see, is being through a website one first. So you're going to have to be engaged with what's happening in the city centre first just to see that. Then it's in the Central Library, which is great. And can I just say, I'm Sutton Mount Gould councillor, and so 3 of those people that you actually spoke to in that library lives in Sutton Mount Gould. So they're people who are going to come into the city centre anyway. And then when you looked at the communities, I can't remember what they were, it was Devonport, Stonehouse, Barbican, Mutley, Greenbank and Coxside. So all those people already use the city centre. One of the challenges that I put through Team Plymouth is, how are we going to measure that this has worked? How do we measure the aspiration of the city? How do we make that little kid in Erniesettle or Whitley want to come into the city centre and work in the city centre? So my question is, and I'm sorry it's a bit long, because we're looking at 25 years ahead, so the kids who are going to want to aspire to live in the city centre are living outside the city centre. So are we going to do any engagement in those communities? So if you're in Southway or if you're in Erniesettle, this is what we're planning for the city centre. What would you like to see in the city centre which would encourage you to come and live, work and play in the city centre? Because at the moment you don't. Somebody talked about the cultural offer a minute ago. A lot of the cultural offer is in the city centre. Marjons are doing a fab job, and there are other smaller things doing fab job at taking the box and everything out, but you still have to pull people in. So when people sort of go to the National Marine Park when it's a free day, 40% of those people have never been there before because they've never been able to afford it or get in there. So when we talk about public transport, we need to widen it. So after that little soapbox moment, and this is all fab, by the way, this is all really positive, but I want to know, how are you going to communicate with those people who don't use the city centre? Find out why they don't use the city centre and find out what will encourage them to live, work and play. Because I just think that the engagement is very, very based around here, but actually the city goes a long way beyond the ring road.
That's
so
perfect.
That was a bit of a long one, but
you got there.
I got there. Thank you.
I'll just come in first before handing over to the team who are delivering themselves. But I think what both you, Councillor Dan and Councillor McLeod, have said is really important to us on this, and it was a challenge that the Cabinet gave to the team when they did a Cabinet consultative process, was that we want to make sure that we're reaching the right people in the right places, whether that means we need to go into schools, whether that means we need to go to community events up in Southway. I think those are all really, really fair challenges, and I think that's something that we would like to see the team do. I think the detail that you've had on those processes and the engagement we're doing, it's not the full picture. We're still building that, and the engagement and the consultation isn't just in this phase. This is just the very, very early part of it before we get to the formal consultation in phase 2 later in the year too. So very much still building that engagement and consultation process. And I know you're going to the workshop tomorrow. That is that perfect opportunity there, and I hope other members will go to the member workshops and feed in where you think we need to be going to make sure that we are capturing as many people as we can. I don't know if Jim or anyone else wants to come in.
Yeah, I think we'll.
I can just.
Jim, I was just going to mention before you go into detail on engagement, and I think it's a really good point. Just so you know, Councillor Dan, we the other day we engaged with the Mammoth Fest group, so 600 STEAM Fest. 600 students, children from across the city, engaging through this process, and the team have had some really good feedback on some of the questions, and what do these younger children want to see from the future of the city centre. As we move through this process, we have got some engagement with schools and colleges as well, so we're trying to reach that demographic. But I think it'd be interesting to hear from Jim in terms of the wider.
Okay, thank you. First of all, just to say, Councillor Dan and Councillor McLeod, we fully recognise the comments and the concerns, and ultimately the success of this. That we are creating a framework for the city centre, but the success of that city centre is predicated on it being usable and accessible and desirable to every community throughout the whole of Plymouth. As Councillor Smith said, the the engagement process is still evolving. A lot of it is fixed, but it is still evolving. We are engaging with the community directly, but also community representatives, community organisations, other institutions, who we hope will also cascade the consultation and the engagement themselves to enable them to do that. This consultation, formal consultation, once the framework and the plan are established, and that will also have to
Jim, we're losing
the
you with
full
the
cross section and the full demographic. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No
I was
problem.
basically
It's
just
technology.
reiterating what others have said. Sorry. Okay,
David
yep.
can pick this up for us.
Yeah, I just think there's a couple of things that are really important. One is, I think Jim and Alex alluded to it, that definition of the city centre isn't perhaps as maybe you perceive it. So it's definitely not the inner ring road. And I think that idea of getting people's headspace that a centre of a city is much bigger. It is the Barbican, it is the Hoe, and so I think there isn't that sense of a huge amount of houses in the inner ring road. I think has kind of got people some spooks was actually, if you look at the maps, that's not what we're talking about. And it might be interesting to get Glenn and Alex just to reflect on that. I think I would just absolutely reiterate Matt's point. I think the team got that same challenge around, we don't want to talk to people already there, and we need to understand who's not. And I just think we should just accept that as a challenge. It's a good challenge, and let the team reflect on that, and perhaps feedback in writing to the panel, because I think that's a really good challenge, and I think it was the same challenge we got from Matt as the lead cabinet member. So I just think we take that as a good challenge, and going back and reflect and respond to you in writing, because I just think we should think about that again. Just make sure we're not missing anything.
David, that's fantastic. If we could get that in writing, that'd be great. That'd be really interesting. Next on the list, I have Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Chair. So there is huge potential for improvements in the city centre to enhance its offering and increased number of people living within it. But my immediate thought goes to Gunwharf in Portsmouth or to the redevelopment in Cardiff as examples where it has worked. But it's been noted this is the beginning of a 20-year plan to deliver 10,000 houses, in other words, 500 a year. Yet we are now required by government to deliver 1,282 houses a year, every year across the local authority boundary. This is substantially more than 600 we've averaged over the last 30 years. So I'm concerned your 10,000 figure over 20 years isn't even the correct number, when actually government now requires us to build 25,000 houses across the city boundary over that period. Let's also remember that the building the size of a civic centre there is only 144 flats. So quite, if they are possible to fit, would be interesting. I struggle to see how it can possibly be sustainable to deliver such a huge increase in housing numbers and all the then required infrastructure capacity increases in health, education, water, energy, outside space, in particular transport and highways. We know that Outland Road and Tavistock Road, for example, are already at capacity, as is the route through Mutley, arguably Embankment Road. So I appreciate the comments on sustainable transport, but the reality is people will rightly require vehicles. We live in Devon, car ownership is a necessity, even if they can be reduced and they're less pollutive. I question how you're capable of delivering the vision, because let's face it, Plymouth already is approaching £1 billion worth of debt. We're approaching our debt ceiling as laid out in a liability benchmark presented to Revenue and Capital budget. That comes before any further requirements to that capital programme. We also know that our projects often run over budget. You highlighted the Mild Away, that was over double the original budget. If one considers the cost to increase capacity of the Manadon roundabout, that is estimated at £156 million. So we can see immediately the cost to properly increase the capacity of our road network, and our cycle, rail, bus and other potential transport measures will likely far exceed the available budget, even after we consider contributions from developers or government. So I generally can see huge positives to the redevelopment that I mentioned in Portsmouth or Cardiff as examples, but really my challenge to you at this stage is, are you able to provide the assurances that in your experience, the concerns that I've raised, and I'm sure others around the city will raise as well, can be mitigated, removed, and your vision actually be achieved?
Stuart, go for it, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So it's important just to remember the status of the City Living Framework. So it is focused on that city centre environment, which is in the existing kind of local plan as identified as the growth area. So this piece of work will inform the next local plan. So the target that you talked around about 30,000, that would be a local plan target for the whole city. In the space of local government reorganisation, obviously if boundaries are changing, then that figure might be different. That will need to be calculated. So the 10,000 requirement that we're talking here is a direct kind of demand coming from the investment in the dockyard and that kind of growth. But it's the process is to kind of identify what capacity this growth area can take comfortably, and that's the work that the team are doing now to kind of make sure that we get the right balance between density, quality of life, infrastructure, etc. And then that will give us a number that we can be achieved comfortably and viably in that area. And it'll be the job of the local plan and the local transport plan, which will follow to kind of look at the whole city and how we deliver on those bigger numbers, the bigger infrastructure, etc. But the infrastructure that we have put in place under the current joint local plan has been kind of orientated to enable that growth. So that Manadon, for instance, that you talked about, and the improvements to other road infrastructure has been about building that capacity. So some of this will draw on that capacity, but there will inevitably be additional infrastructure projects that will be needed over time.
Thank you, Stuart. I just wanted to note at this point that Councillor Wood wasn't able to attend our site visit, and Joe, you spoke around viability during that that visit, and that was really, really informative. I don't know whether you wanted to touch on that for us, please.
Thank you, Chair, Councillors. Thank you for the invitation to that tour, by the way. It was really useful to have that one-to-one time. Plymouth is not alone in facing viability challenges now. Literally everywhere across the country is doing so. So viability as a concept is not something that is strange to all of us, but the city has very unique characteristics. We know that there is relatively low land values and high build costs. So part of this work is helping us and work literally shoulder to shoulder with all of your officers here in trying to get the tools to shift those two levers. So how can we bring build costs down? How can we start to increase land values? Not to exclude anybody in the city. We think there is plenty of opportunity for projects of every type and tenure. So there will be some private for sale. You know, there will be some people who want to buy flats with a sea view, but there'll also be shared ownership, social and affordable rent, build to rent, which is, as a concept, doesn't exist in the southwest beyond Bristol, really. So there are all these new types and tenures that we're hoping to be able to deliver into the city. But there's no doubt that there will be gaps to start with. There will be instances where the market won't necessarily take that risk, and that's part of our mission, is to just to kickstart that, to pump prime these initial sites, to give confidence to the market so that those gaps start to reduce and that we can attract money into the city which previously wouldn't necessarily have been here. We are, I want to say inundated, but we have been talking to regeneration specialists, institutional investors, more or less monthly. There's been a new set of interest in the city that I've been working in the city 2.5 years now. It's just increased and increased and increased. At UK Reef, we had a really, really interesting sort of informal panel where we didn't have enough space to get everyone who was interested in developing the city. So it's all positive, but we're alive to it. This work is not just an abstract piece of work which will have a drawing on a page. Viability and the deliverability of these projects is built into this work, and it's something that, as funding this work with MHLG, we insisted from the start needed to be. It has to have a delivery plan that will enable things to get off the ground. But it can't happen all at once. It won't happen straight away. We need to get things moving. We need to stimulate the market, prove that these things can be delivered, that there's a demand, and then we'll go from there. But we're not naive to the fact that it is a challenge and it needs something to kickstart it.
Thank you, Joe. That was really reassuring. Councillor Wood, supplementary? No? Perfect. David, did I see your hand just go up a moment ago?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say a lot of what Joe said, and it's the right question, definitely. And I think there's a couple of things. The boundary point, you know, I don't know if that map landed, but we're not talking about just the inner city ring road. So that idea of 144 homes in the civic centre predicated on that triangle, that, you know, it's not that. And I think that it might be worth getting Alex and Jim to talk about the typologies and the volume and the placemaking. That's super important. That market making piece, that's what we're trying to do. And the civic will be the first build to rent product. You'll hear about it next. As you said, in the city, and the Capital and Century we're here in a minute, and they're a developer who have chosen us. Well, we chose them, but they're wanting to come here. Can talk a bit about viability and their build to rent figures, and they're higher than anything we've achieved before. And I just think the other point on the infrastructure, and I think Stuart said, is that we've put a lot of infrastructure in. There will be infrastructure investments in the second half of the plan, not the first half. So I think that's kind of really in point. And we are still in deep conversation with government about a bespoke follow-up to the New Towns deal. So we asked for a significant amount of money. You saw in the press release that we were invited to have that. So that still is a live conversation for significant investment. And not to spare Homes England's blushes. I mean, Homes England don't invest in places unless they believe in them. And I probably Joe can't say this, but I can. But 18.4 million in the Civic, over 15 million in Bass Street. Their own acquisitions. I mean, these guys are bringing their money where their mouth is, and that's part of the situation. So we have to get the private sector to deliver. It's not going to be council delivery like the Civic in the next phase. We have to stimulate the market. I think that's pretty much where we're at. So it's definitely the right question.
Brilliant, thank you, David. Conscious of time, so I've got Councillors Tyler and Councillors Morton still with questions to go, so I'll take those, but if you could keep your questions brief and answers brief as possible, please, that would be perfect. Thank you. Councillor Tyler, you're first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's short and sweet. A couple of weeks ago, I went on a tour
absolutely loved it, and it's very exciting for Plymouth. And I am attending the workshop tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to going to. Our city centre, you know, we do need more cultural spaces. They are important to all of us, especially Union Street could be sorted out. And the Barbican and Hoe is a very special place, and that's all looking lovely, I think. But do we get notified on any drop-ins at all when they're getting done? Because are you doing Union Street last, or are you just doing the main part of where we went on the tour the other day? I don't know who to point the question to. I'm just looking at all of you. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, do you mean the drop-in sessions? Yeah, so the Stonehouse one, for example, is still to be arranged, but that's going to be not, it will probably be, you know, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So as soon as we get that venue agreed, we'll distribute information for you to pass on. Okay.
Fab, thank you. And obviously the presentation as well does have a list of some of those drop-in dates on it as well. Councillor Mawson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thinking about engagement in the north of Plymouth in some of the most deprived areas, where if people want to get to a public space like a library or something like that, we don't have any in the Honicknow ward. There's none at West Park, there's none in Ernest Settle, and there's none on Honicknow Green. There's nothing at Manadon. How do you propose to push information out to people in these areas about this, what we'd love to do, particularly if they're disabled?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mawson. Who'd like to say that one?
I can do that one. I mean, yeah, there's more of a challenge to reaching people in wards further out of the city for sure. But if you have ideas for community spaces that it would be good to have drop-ins, I mean, for Honicknow Ward, I'm thinking of the Manadon Sports Hub would be a place for a drop-in that's accessible, close to lots of your residents. But you know, we've taken that challenge away from this meeting that we need to find those places to do it, and we'll report back on where we're thinking.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I've got a teeny tiny question from Councillor Dan.
It's not a question, it's over the summer, there are so many community events that happen out in these events. Southway Open Day, Honicknow Green, they have their own summer events. So actually, rather than trying to set up something, you could just have a pop-up table, a little decorating table, and go there. Because I am pretty sure that those people would welcome you, and they would be the people who wouldn't come into the city centre, and they're events that are already happening.
I 100% echo that point, Councillor Dan. I know that's the case in my own ward in St Budo. You know, we have fun days in Barnbarton, you know, particularly deprived communities that aren't going to be in the city centre as much. So, yeah, I think that would be a great action to take away. So, if there's no more questions on that, we will move on, slightly late, slightly behind schedule, to the Civic Centre update. A little swap around of seats, but Councillor Smith, it'll be back to you. Thank you for everybody that attended today, and those of you that aren't staying, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Chair, do we not have recommendations to vote on?
We will have a recommendation to vote on. Apologies, Councillor Wood, I totally got run away with that. So our recommendation reason is to endorse the programme for delivery of the City Living Framework, including the engagement process. So our reason is to help shape and inform the community engagement programme and the timely delivery of the Commission. So we've had that, it is a recommendation. Do we take that? Yep, getting nods across the board. Everyone nodding? Yep. Yep. Okay, brilliant. Have we got anybody to abstain? No. Oh, you would like to abstain, Councillor Wood. Okay. And nobody against, I'm guessing, from the other heads nodding. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And smoothly like that, Councillor Smith, we're back to you. I should say as well, ladies and gents, don't feel obliged to keep jackets or formal wear on. It is rather toasty, so feel free to take your ties, whatever, off. Perfect. Over to you.
Cool, thank you, Chair. It feels a bit like deja vu with that last piece, but we're now here to talk about a really exciting development that is coming in the city centre. I mean, the redevelopment of the Civic Centre is one of the most ambitious regeneration projects that we've had in Plymouth for a long time, and it's going to bring a landmark building which we all either know, love or hate. It's one of those sorts of buildings for people in Plymouth. And for me, it's really exciting that we're now at this point where we're able to share some really concrete updates with you on where we're at and where we're going with the Civic Centre, because I can remember hearing about what they may or may not do with the Civic Centre from when I was a teenager. So the fact that we're now in this exciting place where stuff is happening is really, really exciting. The Civic Centre is going to deliver 144 flats to the market, build to rent homes within the Civic Centre with Capital and Centric, who are here to talk to you today. On the ground floor and first floor, City College are going to be going in with a blue-green skills hub, which is going to bring 2,000 students into the city centre every single week, which is really, really exciting for 60 courses ranging from apprenticeships up to higher education and adult skills programmes too. People may not be aware, but a lot of work has already been going on behind the scenes. We've had contractors in who have been stripping out asbestos and getting the building ready for those substantial works to really start too. It's going to be a complex project. A building like that is a complex building to work on. There are significant risks to it. You know, it carries a lot of challenges. The challenges facing the construction sector, as Councillor Wood alluded to in that last piece, you know, continued uncertainty with the international economy, conflict in the Middle East, all of those sorts of things. But despite all of that, we've already made some really, really good progress. So just to go through the list of what we've done so far, we've raised 36 million, including an 18.4 grant from Homes England. We've taken the building back from Urban Splash. We've stripped out the building. We've completed a new design. We've secured those 2 tenants that I've already spoken about. We launched the redevelopment at UK Reef. We've had a public consultation, and we have now submitted planning and listed building consent, and that will be going to the planning committee very, very soon. So this really is just an update for you on where we're at and where we're going. So I'll hand over to the team, starting with Mark, who's our architect, to talk through the fly through, and then to John from Capital and Centric, and Paul from City College to talk about their plans and their ambitions for the project and what those next steps are.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Smith.
I'm just waiting to be let into the meeting, and then I will instantly start. It's the only link I've got. Natural Infrastructure and Growth Scrutiny. Try and join that one.
Should we switch up the running order slightly, just to keep things moving? Or do you think you're there, Elliot? For those watching online, please bear with us. We will get there. Technology. That'll be okay. Okay, great. Yeah, David, if you can intro.
So apologies, everyone. We're really keen to show you the fly through. And Mark, our architect, is just struggling to get into the system. So online, just to do some introductions, we've got Paul Fanshawe, who's one of the lead directors at City College, who's going to tell us about the plans for the Blue-Green Skills Hub. We've got John Moffat on the screen, who you can hopefully see. John, nice to see you, who is the lead at Capitol Century, who's a housing developer. So looks like I've padded to the fly-through after all that. Is it ready or not? Yeah. Okay, right, in that case, I've introduced the team. So what we're going to do, we'll show you the fly-through so you get a sense of the scheme.
Going the other way around, actually, but going the other way around. Going to talk you through a brief presentation. Then John is going to give you a little bit of a story about Captain Centric, and then the fly-through. Show that again. Everyone see that okay? Yeah, great. So yeah, my name's Mark Braund. I'm an architect director at BDP. I lead the housing sector for the UK for BDP as well. We've been involved in this project for quite a long time now, for a couple of years. And we started this process by setting out a vision and picking up the pieces from where Urban Splash left off and kind of renewing this landmark building that sits within Plymouth. One of the kind of key elements of the brief was to deliver 144 homes, a brand new renewal off that previous planning permission, but also to deliver a brand new home for City College Plymouth, Blue-Green Skills Hub, as well as reconsidering what was right for the city and what was wrong with the kind of previous plans. So this kind of timeline sets out the journey of the building from 1960s when it was first delivered. It's grade 2 listed, as people will know, and we're now in end of 2026. We started in early 2025. The team is on screen here. I won't talk too much about that, but we're leading the process with a number of consultants who were previously involved in the project. So there's a lot of history involved from the previous Urban Splash days to where we are today. Very simplistically, the podium is all about the college and also the residential amenity. The tower is all about the homes, and the roof is about hopefully redelivering the original 1962 vision for delivering a rooftop restaurant bar that looks out over the city and takes advantage of those amazing views. You know what the building's like today. It's in a fairly sorry state of repair, but it has absolutely amazing history, amazing potential to redeliver the legacy that it once held. And it was delivered as part of this new city plan, post-World War II, when Plymouth was decimated by the Luftwaffe. This was part of that vision of rebuilding, renewing the city. And this building represented also not just a renewal of the city, but a kind of open, transparent government. So it represented a lot. And that's actually part of the reason why it's listed as well. It's not just about the architectural quality. It's actually about what it represents socially as well as a piece of social history. The building has amazing heritage as well, architecturally. It's got this Fibonacci sequence that runs over the facade that sets up all of the different colours of patination that's kind of quite hard to see today, but in the bottom left-hand corner, you can just about make out the difference in facade patination. That's all about human nature as well. And that's one of the things that we've sort of taken very dearly with the transformation of this building. What we put back has to be in that same quality that was originally intended. And the building has a lot of quality to it as well. Again, a lot of it is kind of difficult to see today because of the condition of the building, but it's got colour with red columns, it's got white columns, it's got green columns, it's got a yellow soffit, it's got Murano glass in it, it's got aggregate from Cornish quarries around that are in the actual kind of panels themselves. And a lot of this stuff just needs re-pulling back out of this building to reveal hidden gem that this building we generally think actually has. You know, the building was so good, I kind of put this in last time, it was even used as the Leyland Bus Company's backdrop to showcase how good this building was. But one of the really important context pieces of repicking up this planning and taking this project forward was really about contextualising this building in a new world as well. From where Urban Splash left, we had the Grenfell fire, as everyone will be very well aware of. The high-risk building process has now been brought in with a building safety regulator. So one of the really big underpinning factors of what we've had to do is to reconsider the building design based on how we achieve safe homes for everyone living in those buildings. So a lot of work's been done in that. A lot of work has been done in establishing that vision that we set out. You know, it's an iconic building, but we want to make it sustainable. We want to make it transformational for the city centre. And we definitely see this as a project which is about restoring the civic's pride. This is a visual when it pops up on screen of what our transformation is proposed to deliver. You know, the renewal of this building and its landmark position on Royal Parade and Armada Way. Again, the first impression of what you're going to see as you arrive next to this building, re-establishing what it was always intended to be. This plan shows you, I'm just going to talk very simplistically about this because Paul can talk about it, but the lower ground on the blue side is all the college area that will be workshops and tech spaces. On the left-hand side in the grey is where all of the back-of-house spaces are. And today, probably people will be aware of, it was previously just car parking and back-of-house storage spaces, but it's going to get transformed, it's going to get active, it's going to engage in that kind of car park area in a way that it's never done before. We're proposing to chop a hole through the centre of the floor plate. It's going to deliver this new atrium space. And the blue again is the college space with the entrance coming into the residential, taking advantage of the former college council house entrance. We're planning to completely renew the reflection pool, deliver great new landscaping, great residential amenity space, but also really high quality space, as well as what you could see in the background then was a new escape stair, delivering part of that high risk building escape strategy. The college frontage that will be where some of the old council services used to be out onto Royal Parade will get transformed into a new linear park space that will have paths cut into it, landscaping, planting. The facade will be completely active with the college uses that sat within it. And the first floor then becomes, again, blue college spaces associated with general teaching spaces and the residential amenity that include all the things that go with a built-to-rent product, which is what is proposed within the tower itself, which John will talk more about in a moment. Again, just a visual of what's intended to be transformed. Within the actual kind of building itself, the tower, one of the big changes that we're making is going back to that high-risk building point. We're having to drop in a new lift in the right-hand side. So you'll see a little circle is what the original plan is and what's up there today. We're having to drop a new lift that provides firefighting access and also fire evacuation access for anyone not able to use staircases. And on the left-hand side, we're also having to reconfigure the core to make it compliant and also deliver a brand new dedicated lift that will take you up to the roof and into that amenity space. The apartments are designed to be, really transformational, and this plan shows you where the previous planning application was against where we're proposing on the bottom. And what the big changes that we're proposing to make fundamentally are all about delivering quality homes. We want to deliver something that is space standard compliant. There's a national space standard if people aren't aware for how big homes need to be. We want all of these homes to be achieving those standards, and we'll have 144 of those within the development. The apartment planning approach is all about maximising the quality of the space next to the elevations as well. So we're going to deliver something that feels in tune with the building, but deliver homes that have got this really contemporary but kind of industrial kind of quality to them. But we also want to deliver accessible homes. So every single home, unlike the original planning application, will be M42 compliant, which is an accessible home for everyone going into the building in a wheelchair, but also with a provision for M43, which is an adaptable home for people who are wheelchair users to actually kind of live within the development themselves as well. So lots of great typologies, there's lots of variety, there's lots of technical things that have been developed to make sure this building achieves the same visual that it has today, but obviously improved and renewed for the future. And this is a very detailed piece of work, but this is the sort of stage we're at the moment. We're in really, really detailed design, working towards a gateway process alongside our planning committee, hopefully in the next week or so. And this is the transformation that we want to deliver, a brand new building, retaining all of those amazing elements of the modernist principles that this building was designed with, but brought forward into the future, that we can deliver fantastic, high quality homes, the ventilated in the appropriate way to deal with environments within the city centre. The other really big thing that's been developed alongside this is that renewal of that rooftop amenity, and we've spoken about this in previous committees and cabinet meetings. That was always a really big ambition, and that's kind of within the plans that we're proposing. So a brand new rooftop restaurant, dedicated access with a lift and separate spaces, and that will deliver amazing views out over the city and the foreshore out into the Hoe. The landscape setting is obviously really fundamental to that as well. We want to tie into the Abercrombie plan, the civic space that sits outside that's been renewed. We're building on that work that's already been implemented, and that kind of sets it in its context. We have been through a fairly extensive public consultation process as well, and we've kind of listened to that feedback. But it's not just that feedback that we've listened to. We've actually kind of gone out and spoken and sought opinion from people who used to work in the building and used to engage it. And one of the things that we were kind of really keen to do is this building had a strong social history, and we've tried to embed those kind of principles of what's kind of come out of it into our plan, and we pulled out lots of threads that came back through the public consultation to feed into our proposals. So I'm rambling, but the kind of the overview of this is that we're delivering 144 new homes. We're delivering a space for a new home for City College Plymouth. We're delivering homes that are space standard compliant, accessible for all, elevations that are going to be adapted for the future. We are reducing the height of the big concrete bands that are in the process of falling off the building, and they're going to open those views for the city and those residents to live in really high quality homes that are going to last for the future and hopefully start a new era of city centre living for Plymouth.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was far from
Was that a whirlwind?
That was super concise and really inspiring.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Running order now, David?
I think we're going to invite John, who's our developer, just to give a bit of a vision for the housing, and then Paul to just give a bit of a vision for the ground floor, and then we can then go straight to questions, or the professional team can update on programme. But I suspect we can go straight to questions at that point because of the time. So John,
thanks, David.
Over to you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Afternoon, everybody. I'm John Moffat. I'm Joint MD of Captain Centric. Firstly, apologies that I'm not with you in person today. I had a pre-arranged site tour in Manchester this morning that I couldn't move. As some of you may recall, when I presented last, I talked fairly extensively about the background to Captain Centric and who we are and what we do as a business. So I'll endeavour not to bore anyone by covering that same ground again. But one thing I do want to just touch on and reinforce is that we are a fairly unique organisation in that we both develop and operate our developments, and that's both commercial and residential, and both lettings and management is all done in-house. In fact, we are Property Week's BTR Built to Rent Operator of the Year under our Olo Living brand. And that in-house expertise is really vital to have round the table as you're approaching a planning application on a scheme like this, because unless it's set up right from the outset, the experience of end users will suffer, whether that's both residents and the wider public as a result. So since we last presented, we've spent a lot of time with our in-house ops team, with our design team, looking at the residential spaces and how they're going to work to optimize them, to ensure that those who interact with the building, as I say, whether that's the public or our residents, have a great experience as a result. So what I'm going to quickly move on to is a fly through in a minute that will show you the latest plans for the scheme. But along the way, what our team here at Captain Centric have done is they've added in some footage of our developments that we've delivered and are operating elsewhere in the country, so that you can see what the finished article will look like. And that includes elements such as our resident amenity spaces, so our residence gym, our co-working space, our private dining facility, our mini cine, etc. And then going to the upper floors where our new homes will be, taking advantage of those fantastic views out to the Hoe and beyond, where you'll see some footage of our other developments, both new build and conversion. And what you'll see will be the exact product that we are delivering here in Plymouth, because all of our developments, no matter where they are located across the country, are delivered to the exact same brand standard. Finally, we'll head out into the public realm, where again we are going to work with the college, which will be fantastic, and bring our expertise to animate that space that you can actually see on screen at the moment, just off Armada Way, which looks absolutely fantastic, by the way. And so we'll be bringing our expertise to animate that, to draw people, members of the public in, give them a reason to come and engage with the building and engage with our community as well. Hopefully, all of this provides some comfort that this type of development is something that is well within our skill set, and I trust gets everyone else as excited as we are about what this building is going to deliver, something as yet unseen in Plymouth in terms of the calibre of the product and the expertise of the operator. So if we could just click through to the fly through, that would be fantastic.
Bear with us, it's coming.
I've built the anticipation now. Let's hope it comes.
Fantastic, thank you. It was great to see, and I hope and expect we're all probably as excited as you were before it played. You know, seeing the reflection pools, the nods to all the other developments that you've done, and how they're working was really brilliant. Agenda-wise now, David?
So I think obviously Paul's here from the college. We'll give Paul a couple of minutes just to give a sense of what they're going to do in the space, and I think we'll go straight to questions if that's okay.
Perfect, let's go with that. Thank you. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. So, Paul Fanshawe, Executive of Growth and Skills at City College Plymouth. What are we going to do in this amazing building? I mean, the first thing is about how we bring that kind of sense of vibrancy back to the city. As was alluded earlier on, 2,000 students, 60 courses coming to the city. So, focused on key growth areas of blue and green sectors. It's going to be a catalyst for sustained growth in the training of technical education across marine, defence, energy and net zero sectors, which are the key priorities, supporting obviously key local and national regional needs, which we all know about. It's also going to form a high profile and visible conduit to getting evolving career pathways, so it's visible. The key thing about this one, you know, when you do this kind of stuff, when you present this kind of opportunity, it drives engagement with education skills as well. It's visibly an amazing place. It's going to be an amazing place to study. It will grow the participation in skills. It will mean that more new people will engage within this sector that maybe wouldn't have seen it because it's visible and they can access it much easier, which is great. Transformatively, out of those 2,000 students a year, 60 courses, as we said, it's be operating 6 days a week. So it'll be open on Saturdays deliberately so we can make sure that people and families can access education at the weekends, which you don't currently get. There's also going to be 70% of the courses will be directly delivering blue-green skills in there, with the other 30% offering entry into that sector. So how do we get more people? Because we know we need more people in this sector. So it's about two things. 70%, the majority of it, delivering those hard skills, and the other 30% actually driving more access into that. Kind of themes we're going to be looking at here are, just give you a flavour of it really, marine engineering, electrical, electronic engineering, mechatronics, which is kind of robotics, going to the area of robotics, automation, the project management area that goes with that, because along all those areas, there's the people actually work and deliver those sections. All within a very modern and clean workshop. We're not bringing dirty, heavy, industrial kind of workshops to the city. This is about a modern, vibrant, digitally enhanced modern environments, which you can see there's some fantastic kind of design principles for this. Outside of that, nuclear skills and skills for nuclear, the two things about helping with supporting the crucial need we have for nuclear skills, making sure though we don't duplicate the stuff that we've already got across from the institutions across the city. This is about expanding our capacity, not duplicating it. There is AI and machine learning. How do we get people to be educated in the latest skills to be able to deliver the stuff in marine engineering and electrical engineering, which is in the robotics piece, which a lot of it's about machine learning and AI. Outside of that, then you've got the other bit, which is the really heavy green stuff in terms of solar I can't even say that, photovoltaic systems, nice to say, energy storage systems, energy management systems, environmental sustainability. Stuff about we know that net zero is a massively growing sector in the southwest, so businesses need to be able to need to grow and engage with that. So the sustainable business, the net zero economy, supply chain logistics, procurement and operations, all that kind of stuff is going to open up the opportunities for business to make the most of the opportunities. These three bits, isn't there? It's about making sure new people coming in can get to the maximum level we can get them in. How do they engage and progress all the way through so they can get the great jobs? How do we open up all that reskilling opportunities for all the people that need to come in from our communities to access these amazing new jobs? But also, how do we make visible the entry points, which are those key things here? We'll also do, in those entry bits, there'll be core kind of digital skills, core mathematics skills, core science skills. How do we get more people to engage in this stuff and make sure our communities can access it? They will be ranging from entry level all the way through to higher education, working with our partners across the city, and will be really, really exciting, to be honest, across the 3 floors. What you saw there, ground floor, mostly heavy workshops, clean workshops, but kind of really heavy technical skills. And the first floor there, some really, really digitally enhanced workshops, classrooms that allow the students to get through, and as to get through the volume, because 2,000 students a year is going to really drive a significant boost to this kind of skills sector.
So I suggest we hand it over to questions. We can pick up questions about the programme, what's going to happen next on the building as part of the Q&A, rather than do any more talking.
Fantastic, that's absolutely great. Lots of hands. Who we got first then?
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Allen, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I'm so excited about this and also really delighted. I think one of the earlier plans for the redevelopment, they got rid of the Fibonacci ratios on the windows, so I'm so pleased to see that that's been retained. Bit back down to earth now. How can we ensure that this is sustainable and the high quality built to rent homes? How can we make sure that A, it doesn't turn into another Thamesmead? How can we also ensure it doesn't turn into a millionaire's ghetto? Thank you.
Do you want to start answering that, John, and I can feed in?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, really valid questions. I think for us, as I touched on earlier, we are an owner-operator, and therefore we are not here to deliver something and then disappear off into the future and leave the operational issues, for someone else to pick up. We are here to come and finish a scheme and deliver it, and then stay for the long run, build that community. We're really excited about working alongside the college and what we can do together. That kind of engagement between the two parties has been really great. And I think ultimately it's that difference of we're not here with a short-term view of delivering a scheme and then disappearing off. We are here to sit and operate long into the future. In terms of your point about price point, essentially this is an open market product, and we're not going to let them, if we price them at a price point that's going to exclude local people. If you look at our track record with other developments, a lot of our developments are 100% affordable to people on national living wage using the Joseph Rowntree formula. So although it is aspirational product, it's not priced in such a way that it would exclude local people. So I'm very happy if you want to come and have a look around some of our completed developments. I'm very happy to come and show you that. But hopefully what you will see is that they are accessible to local people, but they are also really well maintained and operated.
If I just follow on, just to pick up the sustainability point. So as I sort of said in the presentation, what we will achieve is space standard compliant homes, accessible homes, future ready homes. So they're going to meet the latest standards that we have to meet within the development. So they're going to be homes that will last the test of time. They're not being built cheaply. They're not being built quickly. They're not being cutting corners. They are achieving what will be attractive to the market for the long term, which is exactly what John and his team need to make sure this product is economically sustainable.
Very reassuring points. Councillor Allen, supplementary to that?
No supplementary. This is brilliant. Thank you. And it's what our local residents deserve. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Next on the list, we have Councillor Maclay.
Thank you, Chair. I think I share Councillor Allen's absolute excitement. Those plans are beautiful. The walkthrough was stunning. I love that building. Brutalist architecture is like absolutely my jam, and if I could live in there and not annoy my greyhound, I would. It's an absolutely iconic building, both in our history and our skyline. So when I'm saying this, I'm really keen to not let perfect be the enemy of good here, because I am really pleased that it's looking to be brought back into use, both for homes and for some really fantastic educational use. It is similar to Councillor Allen, that homes piece that I have a real challenge with. So in a development of the size and scale that we're looking at Civic House, out of 144, we should be looking at 20 of those being delivered as quote unquote affordable. To my understanding, the affordable housing provision is being delivered off-site. I think the key thing for me here is I take real issue in that a building that embodies public engagement and participation is not engaging in its founding principles in its new life. It's literally arteried to Council House here, our place of democracy. It feels quite sharp to me that a building that's also being described as kind of totemic in regeneration of the city looks to shut Plymouthians out in that sense. So what scope is there to rethink that decision around the affordable housing mix?
Go for it, David.
So I think there's quite a lot in that, and I understand the question. I think there's an element that John can talk to about the affordability of the product that we're doing. So I think we'll let John just talk about the product and the affordability and where it sits in that sort of luxury versus kind of affordable boundary. I think in fact, John, do you want to just start there? Do you want to just start about the affordability of the actual rents, and then
Sure.
I'll come back on to the strategic point about the off-site bit.
Yeah, I think it kind of follows on very neatly from my last comment, and I completely understand and agree with the sentiment that this shouldn't be a gated community that shuts out members of the public, and that is absolutely not the aspiration. I think obviously there is a viability challenge that is significant, and Homes England and the council have done some fantastic work on addressing that. But as I mentioned earlier, we're not in the place of coming and delivering developments that are priced such that they exclude local people. Whilst they are aspirational, they are also accessible. So I would point to there's a development of ours which is in Farnworth, just north of Bolton, a place that's very challenged from a viability perspective. 100% of our homes in that development are affordable to people on national living wage, as I said, using the Joseph Rowntree formula. So whilst they might not be capital A affordable, they are still affordable to local people. So I think there's a way for us to go on this, but the aspiration is absolutely there, that we want this to be as affordable for as many people as it possibly can be, but also it needs to be accessible, and that's where having public access to facilities such as the top floor, the restaurant space, making those views democratically available, I think are all kind of critical parts of this development.
So the other bit I would probably just add, so that's the affordability of what we're doing, is I think there is something in this building that we have to accept, that currently nothing's getting done in the city centre in terms of residential. We're not getting any housing. We have to make the market. And I think there is a large part of this first project is, going to Joe's point earlier, is the one that's going to make future schemes viable by reducing the construction cost, by having a pipeline of schemes, but also by pushing the rents up to some extent, because at the moment nothing can get built because some of the rents in the city are such that there's no houses getting built at all. So if you compare the rents in Plymouth for commercially delivered product, they're too low, which means that we're just not building anything. So there is a balance we have to accept, that if the private sector can't make housing work, then we're not going to get any housing. So there is a market-making element to this scheme to stimulate the market, to show that the private sector can deliver a market product. Because going back to Chris's point, we can't have a situation, for the next 2 decades where every scheme needs this level of public intervention. It just physically can't do that. It's just not affordable. And I think Homes England and New Towns wouldn't invest on the base unless we were able to show that over time we could deliver market housing. So I think it's really difficult, Lauren, because you want every project to do everything. But I think this project, more than anything, has to be the one that stimulates the market and shows that the private sector can deliver. And if we don't do that, if I'm really honest, I don't think we'll get the next tranche and the next project. And I think that's it in a nutshell.
Supplementary on that one?
In hearing that it's likely to push up rents in Plymouth, I don't think that will be of much ease to ears that have had their rents raised from £700 a month to almost £1,000 on average in 5 years. So
I think when I talk about rents going up, it means to a level that the private sector can build houses. Because at the moment, there has to be unless we're going to only build houses with huge public subsidies, which that can't be the future. We have to get to the market levels. And I mean, Joe, you might be in a better position to talk about where rents sit in that regional perspective. But some of the rental levels in Plymouth mean that the viability and deliverability is so low. That doesn't mean that all rents have to increase at all. It just means that we have to get to a level of rent that the private sector can deliver without the public sector always having to invest. If we don't do that, we're not going to deliver our ambition. So the Civic Centre is about stimulating the market and showing that the market can deliver without the council at every single case. And we believe that this project will do that, notwithstanding everything. That's why I wanted John to come in first, explaining that actually the affordability of their rents are really reasonable and not exclusive.
Thank you both. I'm conscious of time and I do want to get through some questions, but Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Because I'm conscious when we had our site visit, you did speak about this concept, and I think for me, seeing the building empty, seeing the fly-through and the potential that it offers, I now believe that this can be a vehicle to build that faith in this city so that more people come to build.
Absolutely. I absolutely understand the question raised in the council house myself, you know, and anything that aspirational outside of where my immediate bubble always seem to be just unachievable. What I would say, I understand the question and why you're focusing on this right now, but as I said earlier, we have a pipeline of projects in the city from Mill Bay to the West End to Armada Way North to beyond to Woolwell to Sherford, all those other projects in the city and the fringes. If you look at those collectively, they will absolutely deliver on the proportion of affordable housing that you have set. It's just this project right now doesn't allow us to do that, to be able to achieve the commercial realities of it. So zooming out, by 5 years, you will see projects that will deliver 100% affordable housing, which will more than match what the lack of affordable housing is here.
Thank you, Jay. Next, I've got Councillor Penrose on the list, please.
Thank you very much. I really found all that absolutely fascinating, as you say, very exciting. Just a quick three-part question. Obviously, it's a Grade 2 listed building, but then you went on, you had to cover a lot of ground very quickly. And you talked about the facade replacement. So my understanding is that the east and west elevations, there are problems with the cladding, and you've got to put up a whole lot of scaffolding to bring most of that down. So I just wondered if you anticipate that being, I mean, it's a long process, but is it a straightforward process? So have you got the heritage issues sorted in terms of it being Grade 2? And B, what do you anticipate happening as you bring the cladding down? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Removing the cladding panels is very easy, probably too easy, because that's why we've got an exclusion zone. They're literally falling off the building. So the removal of the panels is the simple bit. The replacement, this sounds like a really low bar to set, but genuinely it isn't. One of the things that we said was Urban Splash had a number of objections from the heritage groups. We set out, and right at the outset, what we want to do is get to a planning permission where we don't have any form of objection from any of the statutory consultees, 20th Century Society, Gardens and Fields Trust, or Historic England. And touch wood, we haven't had any objections with the proposals that we brought forward. And that's rooted, I think, in our really fundamental understanding of what makes this building tick. I would say, so that understanding of that Fibonacci sequence, why the building was laid out in the way that it was, has allowed us to alter the building sensitively back into the same ratios and proportions that the original intent was envisaging, but maximising it from an office building now into a place where people want to live and aspire to live for the future. So technically, yeah, there are some challenges with replacing the panels, but actually the building is relatively sound. There will be remedial works required. The scaffold will be up for probably the best part of 3 years ish. But yeah, the actual kind of process of doing that is relatively straightforward in construction terms. There's nothing really unusual about this building. It's a concrete framed building. It's got beautiful coffers that we will expose. But yeah, it's a fairly standard process, if that gives you comfort.
Thank you very much. That's reassuring. But can you also reassure me that, again, I understand that the base of this building, which you haven't told us about, is some extraordinary sort of beams in a sort of square. I mean, are you confident that the concrete isn't sort of flaky? Can you just reassure us? Thank you.
Yeah, another very good question. I did fly through the presentation, so I cut a lot out today. got told no more than 5 minutes. So yes, you're absolutely right. So the tower is a proper modernist piece of architecture with brutalist tendencies, I would say. So it hovers out and it cantilevers both north and south and east and west out of the building. And I call them the mega beams that allow us to do that. They're effectively a story height of concrete. So they've been surveyed, the concrete has been determined that it's absolutely no problems. The only remedial works that we're really undertaking on the building is where this is fairly classic for most buildings of this era. Rebars being placed, the steel reinforcement within the concrete has been placed a little bit too close to the slab and it's been installed. And there'll be some remedial work to scabble out a bit of that concrete and repair it. But the actual mega beams themselves are designed appropriately. The size of the columns that sit below, not dissimilar to what we've got in the council house, are again designed to be to allow for even modern design standards.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Councillor Wood, a quick one from you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Personally, I disagree with Councillor McClay. I would have knocked it down and started again. But I appreciate, built something bespoke, but I appreciate its heritage status. You can't do that. So you have to do with it what you can. And some of the plans look genuinely impressive. So, fair enough. I do, however, take issue with a couple of points you've highlighted. You say that these are high quality, the flats, and made a big deal about them being space standard compliant, but let's not pretend that's some fantastic achievement. That's the national standard minimum that they can be. You've literally squeezed in as many flats as you can. You say they're allegedly high quality, but let's also remember they don't come with any direct outside space, nor do they come with any car parking. Now, if a developer came to us and wanted to build 144 flats in one block without any parking, we'd probably reject that application. Let's just, so what are your thoughts on why none have been provided? And let's not pretend they won't be necessary for residents, because they will, as well as your staff members as well, and some of those 2,000 pupils as well. And if I may, one question on the finances. Whilst I appreciate this is a complex project, the risk pot set on the project award would have taken this into account. And it would also have considered construction inflation, which according to the Building Construction Information Service Building Cost Index, which combines labour, plant and materials cost, is 3.8%, considerably lower than 4 years ago, irrespective of noting the Iran war in here. So why is it, when you've already had a £10.4 million contingency within that cost plan, which you say accounts for 18% of construction fees and direct costs, was listed as being a reasonable level, are you almost certainly going to overspend?
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I'm not quite sure that was quick and concise, but we'll roll with that list. Can we start working through that? I'm going to temper the question on outdoor space and amenity because this location is in the city centre. It has now, this fantastic play park through Armada Way and direct access to Plymouth Hoe, which is one of the biggest outdoor spaces in our city. So I'm going to temper that bit, so please don't take too much time on it. But if you go through the other questions, that'd be great.
So should we do the size of the flats first?
Yep. So to pick up the point about quality, so the National Space Standards, you're absolutely right, is a minimum for any new build development. Any listed building doesn't have to comply with those regulations. So the original urban splash proposals didn't comply with those regulations. We've taken the view of no, that's absolutely not appropriate. We want to create a home that is a home for the future. So we're delivering on those space standards in order to kind of create homes that are attractive to people to want to carry on living in, renting in, which is obviously fundamental to John at Capital and Centric to make sure that this product works for the future. So the quality of home is about size, absolutely, and that size has been set as a minimum because that's determined to be, that's a quality home for people to want to live in. So they are high quality homes. The next component of that is our design approach to how we're delivering those homes within this building. So it's a listed building, as you've picked up. The building was designed as an office building and not intended to have lots of cellular bedrooms put up against the facade. So the design approach that we've taken is to make sure that those living spaces are taking as much of that elevational area as we possibly can get. So from a quality point of view, externally, this building is part of the city's fabric. We've made sure that this building will retain that aesthetic that the original intent had. So the space for people to generally live in is maximised next to the elevation. The daylight is maximised next to the elevation. We don't have to do that. We could have gone down the same approach as Urban Splash took with lots of cellular bedrooms, lots of narrow, thin living spaces, we didn't do that. We've maximised those living spaces next to the elevation to create as high a quality homes as we can possibly deliver within this building, within a listed building as well. So we didn't use the dispensations. We are making them fully accessible, which again isn't necessarily a requirement. We're actually over providing the accessible homes within the development. So all homes are M42, they don't have to be all M42 compliant. We're allowing for the homes to be M43, adaptable homes within the plan as well, which again, we don't have to deliver. So this is absolutely about delivering an aspirational, high quality product that is built for the future, not just for now. Hopefully that picks up your quality points.
Shall I do the cost one?
Go for it.
So, yeah, so we've got the original cost plan and our cabinet report, I think it sets out is 49.6 million. We're pretty proud of ourselves in having raised 35 million of grant in 12 months' time. And I think if you look at some projects as a percentage, you know, that's impressive, I think. And we've got 12.5 million from the council at this point. We can appoint the stage 1 contract within our current approvals. There's no problem with that. So that's approved. The stage 1 contract, rather than do a single contract, is to accommodate the Building Safety Act. And the simple is that we have to have all the information in the Building Safety Act at a much earlier stage. So if we waited to do a single contract, the building would effectively stay, nothing would happen for 12 months. So we're cracking on and talking to the earlier question, we'll effectively scaffold building, remove the cladding panels. So I think what the report's saying is that we have some risks at this stage, which we don't know yet whether they will crystallise in stage 2 beyond our contingency. We're setting out the contingency, we set out some mitigation. We've got additional grant funding identified, and I think that's in the report from the Defence Growth Deal. So I guess that at this point, we can appoint the stage 1 contract within our current approvals, no problem with that, but we are flagging up there are some market pressures. We don't know, because we haven't got a stage 2 price yet, if they're going to crystallise, if they'll go beyond our contingency. There have been some abnormals that we didn't anticipate in the first stage, specifically relating to asbestos, and there has been some impact from the Building Safety Act, and I think it's fair to say that the market in the UK hasn't been building because of the Building Safety Act. So I think we're one of the first projects in the UK to go through the high-rise building. We've navigated that well. So I think it would not be prudent to flag those risks at this stage. But what we're not saying is that we still stand behind our cost plan, and we have sufficient mitigation that our current approval stands. So I think that's where we're at. But we have made a commitment in the report to bring back the detailed stage 2 price in the course of this municipal year, and that's when we'll know how good our numbers were.
Very small supplementary, please.
Would anyone have an answer on parking that I highlighted, please?
I'm happy to just touch quickly on parking, but others may want to come in too. I think it's people who are choosing to live in a tower block in the middle of a large city centre do not necessarily expect to be able to park outside their front door. We do have plenty of parking available in the city centre at the moment, but with that last piece on the city living framework, you heard about how we're going to have to take a much wider look at parking provision in the city and how that works with bringing all these people to live in the city centre. So there'll be elements of that will be addressed through that work as it is. I don't know if John wants to come in on his experience of creating these kinds of developments with people who don't necessarily expect to be able to park outside their front door.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Yeah, just to come in on the car parking point, very happy to provide a tour of one of our developments that I'm actually sat next door to, which is a completely carless development of a couple of hundred homes in a similarly kind of sustainable location. That's not to say that there won't be some demand for car parking. I think you're completely right that there will be some. I think our view is that, as has just been said, residents anticipate that they will not be able to park in front of their building, that they will need to have a provision for off-site parking. And through our OLO team, we will sort that out, whether that's licenses with a car park provider in the vicinity, or working with the council if there are council parking spaces that can be provided. So we will work through that detail but we're quite comfortable that there isn't any on-site provision for parking.
Perfect, thank you, John. One last very quick question, Councillor Goslin, over to you. Oh, two then, Councillor Dan, sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is more about the Plymouth College expansion here. Very quick question. This can be a very good question. Is this additive space, or is it a change in basically the campus footprint of Plymouth City College? Are you moving in and moving out of other spaces, or is this pure expansion? Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is expansion. So the college has grown by about 42% over the last 3 years. So in terms of our space to grow, we need new growth space. And we've been looking for additional space now for around about 3 to 4 years. So we are growing quickly, and this will be new courses and new provision.
Fab, thank you. Councillor Dan.
And an excellent follow-on question. So mine's also support. So mine's about the new spaces. So I'm just thinking about my granddaughter, who next year will be doing her choices for her GCSE/A-levels or whatever she chooses to do. So going back to the thing I said before about the aspiration and how we're going to get people who I pick picking on early settled, well, I pick on Whitney or Southway, those young people there who may not necessarily choose to come into the city for education. So when is the college going to actually put out what these new courses, these new jobs, these new industries are going to look like, so that the young people now can plan to come here in September 2030?
Yeah, really good following question. I think the nature of those courses, obviously you can appreciate these sectors are moving very, very quickly. So between now and 2026 and 2030, there's a large qualification reform that's going through at governmental level at the minute. It means a lot of qualifications and things are changing constantly. So there will be broad themes, which I've covered today, and I've tried to keep it broad because the nature of the qualification, the specific things might adapt over the next 4 years as we get to launch. The careers, though, aren't. So we know that we'll be very much marketing and pushing the opportunities for our local communities to take advantage of the investments coming to the city. So we're looking very much at how do we join the dots between our local communities being able to access the high value jobs. We're very much saying to get into this industry, what are the skills you need? So whether that's electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, whether it's in the nuclear industry, whether it's in net zero industries, very much, because then we are looking at drawing those lines through skills escalators that come across the city that say, these are the opportunities, these are the jobs, these are the careers, and these are the courses you'll have to undertake to get there. We obviously aren't going to be opening a brand new facility in 2030 without a lot of work in advance to make sure that building is full. So absolutely over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be introducing new courses at the college which will move, which will then start to move in and start to build that. We'll be able to scale quickly because it's about scaling this kind of provision. So you'll see this happening over the next 3 years because it's going to be a process to get 2,000 students. It is a process of, as you said, showing the vision, showing the aspiration, showing the careers and the jobs and the wages they'll be able to get, and making sure our community can get there, but also giving the building blocks to get there, because it's not just about jumping straight into that course. In many cases, it's about bridging that gap. How do we get there? So in terms of the 12,000 students we're already working with, a number of those students will be people who will go into those courses. So it's about selling that vision in the courses they'll be participating in the next 3 years. So it's about absolutely people who might want to come and reskill straight off, but also how do you get there from the existing courses? I think those conversations will be very, very high profile in the next few years, whatever with the defence sector, with the advanced manufacturing sector, digital construction, which we know across the whole Southwest there's huge amounts of jobs and opportunity, all needing the skills, and this centre is going to deliver on them.
Perfect, thank you. And Paul, thank you. For me personally, working in the marine sector space in my day job, I can't reiterate how much opportunity I feel this will offer young people in our city. And it's a really nice piece of work to have you in here today, because this is a piece that's come before Scrutiny previously in the past, and we've had this conversation a number of times around connecting the dots, and it's just really fantastic to see that that's actually starting to happen, and it makes me really hopeful. I had just one final question, which was sort of around local employment, apprenticeships, and supply chain opportunities that are potential to come out of this development in the coming years. And if one of you could speak to that quickly, please.
So that's going to be a really high priority. This project's got significant public funding in it. Our expectations of any contractor is an exemplar scheme around social value, local employment, local procurement. So I mean that's an absolute given, and we would expect and demand that the contractor would report that performance against the highest level of ambition from us as a city.
Perfect, thank you. And I think as we've got NZAP coming up in a moment, I'll raise a question at that point around sort of materials, build materials, and how we can look at reducing the carbon footprint of this development and others in the city. And we've talked previously at the scrutiny around whether we can use maritime transport for those sorts of things. So hopefully a bit more connecting the dots. Well, thank you all for your thoughts on this. So recommendation reasons. So it is recommended that scrutiny notes there is significant headway which has been made to progress the redevelopment of the Civic Centre and to continue with the momentum to maintain programme and meet with funding requirements. Phase 1 construction should proceed, noting that the risk and mitigation measures PCC approved spend is to be reprofiled, bringing forward spend to phase 1 whilst remaining within the approved cost envelope of circa 49.6 million. The project will return to natural infrastructure and growth scrutiny during Q4 26-27 with an update on phase 2 costs. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah, I'm getting all nods. Anybody like to abstain from that? Checking. Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you all very much. We will move to our next item now. So I'll allow for the reshuffle. If anybody wants to go for a comfort break quickly, now's your time. This is the best shot. Welcome, Councillor Bryarsdale. Conscious that you always seem to end up getting the graveyard shift at Natural Infrastructure and Growth Scrutiny, and you're always then compressed time-wise. So once everyone's returned from their comfort breaks, I'm just very conscious of your time and all the members as well. So if we can keep everything as short and sweet as possible, please, that'd be great.
or the phrase net zero in the title Net Zero Action Plan, I think it's fair to say that as a concept, it's something that there have been attempts to somewhat demonise it over recent years. And I think it's fair to say that it's worth appreciating that that phrase doesn't best capture some of its many benefits. So I wanted to begin by talking about the fact that at its heart, net zero is about living in cosier homes. It is about breathing cleaner air. It's about travelling in more active and sustainable ways. And it's also about driving down energy bills, both for us as an organisation, but also for people in homes across Plymouth who are struggling right now. And I want to be clear as Cabinet Member that net zero remains a significant priority for this administration. And actually in the not too distant past, this was a concept that did have cross-party support when before my time, but in memories of a couple of people in this room, that this council voted unanimously for the Climate Emergency Declaration in 2019 and some of the work that Sue did a few years ago now. So today we have the Net Zero Action Plan, which we use the acronym NZAP for as shorthand, covering the years 2026 to 2029. And this is the document that we use as the Council's rolling 3-year climate action plan. It sets out how the Council will reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the services it delivers and assets it controls directly, whilst also using the widening influencing power that we have as a Council to support Plymouth's transition to become a greener city. The plan is refreshed annually to reflect completed projects, emerging opportunities, lessons learned, and changes in national policy or funding. While the Council can directly control only a small proportion of citywide emissions, previous action plans have demonstrated that local leadership can drive significant change. The NZAP provides the strategic framework for this work and ensures that climate action remains embedded across Council services. A key message from this year's report is that the Council's own emissions continue to fall. Corporate Scope 1 and 2 emissions, those within the Council's direct control, reduced by 7% during 2024 to 25. The largest reductions came from lower gas consumption across the corporate estate, driven by energy efficiency improvements and changes to the building portfolio. Previous NZAPs have delivered a range of exciting achievements. These include the deployment of over 50 electric double-decker buses through the Zero Emissions Bus Regional Area Programme. Again, apologies for all the acronyms, but you might hear that referred to as ZEBRA in some of these meetings. Replacement of around 75 council fleet vehicles with electric alternatives, conversion of around 15,000 streetlights to more efficient operation, delivery of award-winning household retrofit programs, development of the City Heat Network program, installation of numerous renewable energy projects, and implementation of energy efficiency measures across council buildings. And I think that last one is something which I think we should all be very interested and passionate about, because collectively previous investments in solar generation, but also things like energy efficiency and street lighting have already secured over £1 million in annual energy savings to this council. Without that, we would be looking to find that from other council services. Performance during 2025 to 26 has been strong, and I'd like to publicly thank officers from across the council for delivering these shared commitments across departments. Of the 40 actions included in the 25 to 28 NZAP, 33 were either completed or progressing on track. 7 actions are also progressing well, but with minor delays, with only 1 action reporting a significant change to delivery. The 26 to 29 action plan that we have here in front of us today continues to focus activity around 3 priority themes that are responsible for the majority of the council's emissions. So first of all, you've got a section there on buildings, heat and power, including delivery of an energy management system to reduce energy consumption across the council estate, ongoing development of Plymouth's heat network, support for household energy efficiency improvements, progression of the Chelson Meadows solar farm, and expansion of solar installations on council assets. I mentioned that previous investment has secured over £1 million of savings every year. The hope is that collectively those measures in this NZAP will save an additional £1 million on top of that prior savings in the run-up to 2030. Secondly, we've got the section on transport, which includes continued decarbonisation of the council fleet,
implementation of further electric vehicle charging infrastructure across the city, expanding the electric car club, an e-scooter trial in the city, which I believe lots of you will have received an email about this week, and also planning for Torpoint Ferry decarbonisation too. And finally, the section on behaviour change, which includes various recycling actions, a new focus on reducing emissions from our supply chain, and the development of a citywide net zero route map, which we've been working very closely on with major partners. So overall, the draft Net Zero Action Plan for 26 to 29 demonstrates strong progress, with corporate emissions continuing to fall, major projects delivering measurable benefits, including significant cost savings, and a clear programme of ambitious actions that will maintain momentum towards net zero whilst delivering those cost savings for the Council. I'm going to pass on to Ian, who's been working very hard on the administration of this NZAP, whilst Emmanuel's been busy on LGR.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Yes, I'm going to take you through some of the key points in the report. So kicking off with the progress report from the prior year. I think we can say that there has been a very positive story to tell here, which Tom's already alluded to. So yeah, every single action is progressing well in terms of its quality. So the small number of issues were either minor delays, and just one action which also has very high quality, but the retrofit of homes had to be scaled back in terms of quantity just because of external funding constraints. This slide just shows us where we are in terms of the governance of the different forums that this has gone through. I think the key point to note is just that this won't get published until September after it's gone to Cabinet. In terms of performance, we report the emissions reporting from the 24-25 year in this report. We have shown that we continue to reduce overall emissions, and within that we report under three themes: buildings, which had the vast majority of those savings through energy efficiency measures and also estate rationalisation. Transport and street lighting were relatively flat. You'll just see a very small uptick in the transport emissions. They actually came down from our core fleet as we moved more onto electric vehicles, but due to the expansion of the commercial waste offering, which is diesel trucks, there was a small uptick there. And then the street lighting has just started to fall following the continued rollout of the street lighting, so I'm expecting that to fall more significantly in future. The report then goes on to talk about some of the key achievements in the NZAP that has resulted from this and prior NZAPs. And slight change of tack since the last one, in that we've now presenting these rather in terms of words. This has been brought out into an infographics. So you can see here, for example, that we've now reduced our emissions in our estate by 18% since 2023, and that we've got 11,000 of our street lighting with improved street lighting controls. So that's about a third of our stock, and that will increase over time. Secondly, around the transport theme, again, a number of great achievements here, which Tom's already alluded to a few of them, but like electric vehicle charge points, for example, almost up to 300 here, and we've got ambitions to get up to 1,000 of those. Also, barrel bikes, we've had very strong uptake. We've got over 34,000 registered users, so on track to hit our 40,000 target by the end of next year. And then lastly, in terms of behaviour change, there's been lots of great stuff happening around the city. We've reached nearly over 200,000 people through our Climate Connections channel. And yeah, I was really impressed with the first Net Zero Expo that we'd held this year, and look forward to more of those in years to come.
Yeah, slides are frozen.
Oh, so they are.
Slides freezing
Yes,
between your screen and the display,
yes,
are
there
they?
is. I'm not sure what I can do about that. They've seemed to have disappeared altogether now. Okay. One sec. Oops. I seem to have dropped off the call altogether now. Let me join again. I've lost my complete Wi-Fi connection now. Unfortunately,
do you want to talk us through the slides?
I just keep talking. Okay.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
We've now got my next slide is around the key focus for the actions for the current year, where I've got a table which talks about the
page 109.
On page 109, you can see a table which has the corporate and citywide emissions, and we've aligned that along the three different themes. So for the NZAP actions, you can see where the key actions are going to be across those themes and what's impacting the city versus what's impacting our corporate estate. Then moving on to the goals on page 113. So slight change to the presentation of the goals this time. They used to be part of the NZAP actions themselves, but I've brought these up into a separate table in their own right. So what this does is it ensures that each goal, it's got a clear date, a clear measurable target that we need to hit, and also we report on the current level of where we're at. And going forward, this is going to increase sort of transparency and accountability as we track those for 25, 26, 27, etc., and we can see progress towards the target. So I think hopefully you'll agree we've got an ambitious set of targets here, but I do believe that these are also achievable targets. I then go on to talk about the new actions in the NZAP. So the NZAP itself, it's got 45 actions. Some of those roll off because they've been completed. There have been some tweaks and amendments to some of them as life and the world has moved on to make them more relevant. And then there's about a third of the actions are new actions for this year. So we have a number of new actions across each of those three themes: the building, heat and power, transportation, and behavioural change. So there's about 15 of them. I won't go through them one by one because you probably want more time for questions. So I'll pause there and see if anyone's got any questions.
Ian, thank you so much, and well done for carrying on without the tech behind you. It's always a challenge, and I'm sure Elliot feels your pain right now. Councillor Brightself, anything more to add, or are you happy for questions now? Okay, open to the floor. Actually, I just want to say before we start, this is really timely. So whether you as a panel have noticed or read and seen PML on the news a lot, Plymouth Marine Laboratories, in the last week or so about the unprecedented marine heat wave. So Professor Matt Frost from PML has been speaking about that a lot, and it's international news. So, you know, this work does seem very, very timely, particularly how hot it is in here today. Councillor Tyler, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair. Just saying about the buses, electric buses, I think they're a great idea. I think they're brilliant. Do they run on one single charge a day? How many miles does that do? And also, from the 1980s, there's a lot of buildings that have been built for heat. But now we're getting to the stage where there's a lot of houses of people I speak to where they seem to having problems with being too hot. They're cold in the winter and they're too hot in the summer, and all the houses that you see getting built now are built for heat, but we're having a problem there with the climate changing that we need to look at keeping buildings cool as well. Thank you.
Great, happy to take both of those. So on the electric buses, so that was a partnership project working with the private bus companies like Citybus, working with Cornwall Council, and then we applied for the Zebra 2 funding, which helped to unlock over £30 million investment in that fleet of 50 or just over 50 of their buses. The PCC contribution to that was around 750 grand, which was paid for out of SIL money, Community Infrastructure Levy. And so we were able to unlock that through our role as a council. And we're really proud of that. You know, there was some skepticism initially amongst certain parts of the public, but actually I think what people have realised is that even if you're less interested in the net zero argument, it makes air cleaner on these busy bus routes. And they're also just modern, cleaner, more comfortable buses that I think people are really appreciating. We don't have anyone specifically from the transport team here today, but we can get written clarification to you on how far their mileage is on a charge. But I certainly haven't noticed any significant negative stories about them. They've been up and running for months. So I think if Richard were here from Citybus, he'd be saying about what success they've been for his fleet. On your second point around housing, I think you're both right, Chair and yourself, around what the last few weeks have really shown people, which is that there are so many ways in which our climate is changing. One of them is the extremities of heat. And the thing with retrofit is that it's not just about keeping people warm in the winter, but it's also about keeping the heat out in the summer as well. And so a lot of the energy efficiency work that we're doing directly with the Warm Homes Grant, but also some of the partnership work that we do with Plymouth Energy Community is about helping people to be better equipped with ways of monitoring their own home. But it touches upon so many different things that we're doing. The heat network, which many of you attended a briefing on recently, has opportunities for centralized cooling as well. So it's essentially a way of doing that temperature control, but on massive zonal basis. And so that's hugely exciting. And also the work we're doing with the natural infrastructure team around tree planting as well will help to increase canopy cover in urban areas, which can make a several degree difference, particularly on hot days like this. We all notice it, don't we, if we're walking under the shade of a tree. If you have trees outside your house, they're doing that on a bigger macro scale as well. So lots of pieces to that urban cooling point. And I think it just goes to show that the real difference to people about getting that zero investment right.
Thank you,
Just,
Councillor Bryce.
sorry, just wanted to say, because I live in a granite cottage and my cottage is cold in the summer, warm in the winter, but I just think building houses certain ways would be a better idea as well. You've got to look at that.
I can come in on that as well. So that is an issue that has been covered at this scrutiny in the past. So PEC, Plymouth Energy Community, that deals with that piece, and we can get you some information on that to give you that background. And also to your point, Councillor Bryce-Delve, with regards to Plymouth City Bus and the electric vehicles, they have also presented last year at this committee, and that was really, really informative. So maybe just a briefing note for the new members, well, all members, but specifically for the new members, would be helpful. So if we could take that as an action, please, Elliot. Thank you. Next on the list, I've got Councillor Macleay, and I'm going to ask you all just 1 point questions now, please. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to be covering this in a week that feels quite high in climate anxiety as a little bit of reprise. First of all, it's a suggestion, a little bit of a language shift based on Councillor Taylor's question from heat and warmth to maybe more temperature control, because particularly that heating and cooling element is so much more important now. My actual question, I'm sorry, Chair, is around the Warm Homes local grant and the delay that's being faced in that sector. My question is whether that is a failure to attract funding or a lack of availability of funding. And then the kind of response to that, if it's a lack of availability of funding, obviously we've done, to absolute credit, some really fantastic work in this area, achieving awards. Would it be an action that this panel can suggest, alert to government to call for more funding in that area, if that is what is the missing element here?
Yeah, so we've done a huge amount of work in this area. We've already sent letters to government around funding, because at the scale required, this isn't something that PCC can do in its own right. So for the Warm Homes local grant, the government has given us over £3 million in the last year, which is very well received. But for that, you're talking hundreds of homes, not tens of thousands of homes. And so, that's something we've continued to do lobbying on before and since around that. It's something we've sent letters on, it's something I've brought up with our local MPs, and it's something I've had an in-person meeting with the chair of the, I'm going to get the title wrong, but there's a DESNES Select Committee nationally who I met when he came to Devon. We talked specifically about ways of driving that up. I think the work that the government has done around the Warms Homes Grant is a great improvement on some of the previous iterations that other governments have had in this area. There used to be a very confusing range of different grants for retrofits with huge confusing acronyms, but also very restrictive criteria, and the Warm Homes local grant will help us to deliver at scale to people that are incredibly vulnerable in terms of people in lower household income brackets and who are eligible for certain benefits. But yeah, we do need additional funding to help drive that on, and we'll continue to lobby for that.
Thank you, Councillor Barrisdale. Any follow-on to that? No. Okay, next I've got Councillor Penrose, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd just like to say I think this is absolutely brilliant that so much is being done on so many fronts in really a very short time. So I think it's very exciting. I had loads of questions, but just one. In view of what we've just been talking about most of the afternoon, I think it's your section BHP6 on construction. And it looks all straightforward, but then you have a very long paragraph at the end about everything's different. You have to sort of do it according to the site. Have I got the right one? Buildings, construction. Oh, sorry, progress. Are we only talking about the action plan? Well, this is, I'm sure it covers both. It's just what I wanted, yes, it's the progress report, but what I wanted to find out was when the council goes into collaboration with all these contractors and firms, do they have to comply with our standards? To what extent are we in control of how they control their emissions? Sorry, have you got where I am? Yeah.
Yes, so this is a really important piece of work because, as you'll have seen through this committee and through work in full council, the council directly builds but also commissions a huge range of buildings. And there have been some really interesting examples in this space. So if you look at the adult social care building that's been built off Outland Road, that's a really interesting example of a build that has been done to incredibly high sustainability criteria, triple glazed windows, heat pumps, solar, accessible, sustainable transport, some really great stuff around natural infrastructure. But because of the requirements for that building and the complex needs of the individuals who'd be using it, they needed it to be single story, and that made it incredibly challenging to be truly operational net zero, even with all of those additional extras. So what we wanted was to have a guiding policy that could apply to all council construction, and that's been something that we've worked on a huge amount because you want it to be in the council's interest in terms of environmentally but also financially, but we also don't want to be preventing construction that is incredibly important for our frontline services too. Ian, is there anything more you wanted to add specifically on that sustainable buildings policy?
I mean, just to say where we are in the process here. So this is the idea of a new policy that would apply to all of the construction activity that Plymouth City Council takes. So in answer to your question, I mean, yes, it will apply to developers who we appoint, but that policy has not yet been implemented. So the action that we're reporting on here is the development of a framework that has now completed, and we're now looking at trying to take that forward to implementation. But just to say, it is quite a complex thing to do because what we've discovered is the diversity of our estate. So to get a policy that has a one-size-fits-all to, a life centre with a swimming pool, a new office block, and a retrofit of like a heritage building, it's a massive challenge. So yes, it will apply, but it's going to take a bit of time before we can get to a stage where we've actually got a policy that we can implement and enforce.
Thank you. And you can assure us that the people we've spoken to today who are going to be in charge of such big, extensive projects, they are willing to sign up? I mean, there's no resistance, no sort of hanging back?
So yeah, on that major project, there's already been extensive engagement around the kind of sustainability ambitions that we would want for it.
I've got a question to tag on to the end of that. So in the Civic Centre City Living Framework space raised earlier the idea of emissions and benefit to local jobs, etc., and stuff like that, but also potential benefit of construction to net zero goals. And we talked about it before through council, and this idea that if we can offset the haulage of building materials on land to the sea, there's potentially big net zero carbon savings we could make. And I was very lucky to attend in your place actually, Councillor Barrows Delve, the inaugural visit of Eric Tun Resolve, which is a big cargo vessel, but it's a dual fuel vessel that came into Plymouth, and the opportunities that these sorts of fleets could have. So I guess my question would be, can we challenge procurement even further on that space as well, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the list, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Reference streetlights on page 89. Now, Devon County Council turn off a significant number of streetlights. This is an excellent way to save money, reduce emissions, and reduce light pollution, which is better for nature. Now, whilst in a city environment, this would need to be tailored to suitable areas. Is this something you would consider? And would you also consider measures to encourage supermarkets and other shops to also turn off their outside signage lights when they are closed? Because because if you go around the South Hams, Woolworth will have all its lights turned off. Tesco Robra illuminated like a Christmas tree. Does all the hard work when you go up that little road towards it. And also, assuming Plymouth expands into the South Hams, we know the news today, will those existing policies be retained?
Some big questions there. So I should preface this by saying I'm not an expert on street lighting, and one of the challenges of the NZAP is that you're working across the council, so I have the joy of having to try and bluff my way through bits I know very little about. On street lighting, there are some positives in terms of work we've already done. So in terms of modern LEDs, which are much less energy intensive and cheaper to run. There's also some work which I don't particularly understand about smart technology around that as well. So that's another way of reducing electricity. There have been options looked at in terms of ways in which you could do it at different times of day. My memory of those discussions was that based on the technology that we already have, that it wasn't going to be as useful for emissions as other councils have played at, but Ian might be able to give you some more detail on that.
Yeah, exactly. So the action that we've got now is to roll out street lighting optimization. And what that optimization enables you to do is to vary the intensity of the light. And you can do that between 100% down to 1% or even 0%. And you can also vary that throughout the night. So you could, and at 25%, a lot of areas will see plenty of benefit, 75% of the benefit in terms of emissions and cost savings, but they will also see a lot of light for safety concerns. So by taking things down to zero and switching them off completely has very little benefit in terms of actual cost savings compared to just keeping that optimization in place. And also, what I've been told is that even if you switch them off, you're still burning 1 watt per hour. So by keeping them on and having them down to a very low dimming threshold, which, as I say, can be varied throughout the time of night depending on the demand for the area.
And in case any journalists watching looking for a headline, I think it's also worth saying that, of course, there'll be very careful consideration to other linked debates, concerns around safety at night as well. And so, it's been really useful to look at that work around how can you just reduce it without completely switching it off as well, particularly in areas people are walking through at night. To answer your final question as well around LGR, so there's a huge piece of work around what that involves for so many services. So they have to talk on a subject I know more about, different recycling, services as well. There's much more complex than ours. And across all of the council services, we'll be looking at how can we be consistent eventually, but there will be various years where that's phased in. And so there hasn't been a fixed decision on something like this at that stage.
Thank you. Tiny supplementary.
Tiny supplementary. Would you agree with me that it is better for nature if there are darker areas at night, hence why I suggested supermarkets, and that I mentioned it being tailored, because clearly you have to look after safety, obviously, but I'm sure there are areas where we could tailor turning them off, which would be better for nature.
Yes, and if there are particular instances of businesses as well that you think that it would be useful for us to be corporately lobbying, then I'd be interested to have that discussion. But you're right about nature too, and again, there's often discussions around lighting in parks, and that would have ecological impacts too, and all of that has to be weighed up.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Trying to think how to combine these 2 points into one
Go
question.
on, do two quickly, just
the
super
link
quickly, come on.
is rollout, new initiatives. So firstly, how is the rollout of food waste progressing, and what's being done to help people encourage that behaviour change?
Great, yeah, thank you for the question. So we are now in phase 2 of 5 on the rollout. So our intention is for all Plymouth households to have food waste service by the end of this year, and we're on track to deliver that. So far it's been more popular in terms of participation than we had targeted, which is really exciting. The last number I remember at a briefing was that we had way surpassed over 500,000 kilograms just on phase 1 by itself. And we've been in phase 2 now for the last couple of weeks. So if your ward or parts of your ward, because this isn't done on a purely ward basis, isn't yet covered by this, there's a postcode checker online that you can direct residents to, and that will just give them a sense of when that's coming up. But we're also working with an increasingly large team of recycling officers who are going to schools, they're going to public events. I'm sure many of you will have been to some summer events where you've seen their stand. They're at the Armada Way opening, engaging with the public, answering questions. It's quite interesting to see some of the FAQs that come up. The amount of times that people have mentioned to me in passing they're worried about the smell, and then you point out this is the same waste that you used to put in your brown bin, but collected twice as regularly. There'll be less smell, there'll be less risk of vermin. And once people understand that, and normally that's once they've tried the service, they actually realise it's a much better experience than what they had previously. So we're pleased with the rollout, and we'll be continuing to do work around the behaviour change aspect to encourage more people to sign up. I should also mention on cost savings, for every tonne that goes to the anaerobic digestion through food waste, it's a third cheaper than if we were taking it to the energy from waste facility as well. So again, there is a commercial benefit to the council in us encouraging these kind of decarbonisation behaviours as well.
That's a great stat. Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to that, Tom, what happens if a family's made their own arrangements for composting or to get rid of their food waste?
So one of the things I often hear is people say we don't have any food waste, and my challenge to that is always, do you eat chicken bones, do you eat banana skins? There are lots of things that even people that are very good at clearing their plates do. And if you're anything like me, my kids drop a lot on the floor, so it's really shocked me quite how much we're scraping off the floor and putting in our food waste caddies. But composting is great, and I would 100% encourage people to continue composting. A lot of people have one in their own garden. Some people use community composting as well, which is a really lovely way of doing it. But there are things that some people wouldn't put in a compost bin. I mentioned chicken bones, for instance, that you can put in our food waste bins. And so you can use both. It doesn't have to be either or.
Perfect. Thank you. Supplementary?
Whatever we can't put in the compost bin, we burn anyway on our log burner, chicken bones. Dogs that the bones that the dogs have turned down. Yeah, not dogs. Thank you.
Not sure on that one, the net zero, but yeah, well, okay. Councillor Dan, moving swiftly on.
Just to come back against for the light in the streets, can I just say that when this was discussed years and years ago, there is a big balance here about community safety, especially against violence against women and girls and other vulnerable groups. And although it might be great for biodiversity and everything to turn the lights off, it will cause a lot of anxiety for people who happen to be walking around on the streets late at night, perhaps if you're a nurse and you're going in late or whatever. So I do think that needs to be noted.
I think that's a
Yeah.
key point.
Really
of
strongly.
striking
I want to be really
balance.
clear, Councillor, there's no plans to turn all street lighting off at night, and I think, you know, it's the kind of thing that can run the risk of getting misunderstood. So I think it's a really important point you make.
That wasn't my question.
Well played. Question, please.
Yeah, so I'm looking at sort of the plans moving forward. So I just wanted to know, when we're listening about all the exciting development in the city centre, how do all these collective targets together for what we want to do with that in the council's control, how is that strategically implemented when we're looking at public transport development? Because I mean, if we're going to have the growth in the city centre, we talked about sustainability, we are going to have more public transport so people can get in and out. So does the stuff that belongs to the council become strategic when we're looking at our plans, is my question.
So I would argue that the city centre housing that you've just been briefed on is one of the most exciting sustainability opportunities. You know, we need to grow in terms of our population, and by doing it in the city centre, there are benefits in terms of taking away the pressure from the green belt, so from a natural infrastructure point of view. By intensifying it here, we are building housing where there's already amazing sustainable transport links. So the train, the barrel bikes, the e-scooters, which are just about to be rolled out, and there aren't many buses that don't go through Royal Parade and Mutley Plain. And so, you know, I think that is very much at the heart of those plans, that both on a natural infrastructure point of view, but also on a decarbonisation point of view, that there is scope for low carbon housing here in a way that it would be more challenging and more expensive elsewhere. In terms of a wider strategic point as well, it's also front and centre for the heat network plans as well. So one of the things that hasn't been covered much in terms of comms around Armada Way, in terms of Mill Bay, is that some of those big regeneration projects have already had heat network connectivity at their heart. And so rather than having to dig up all of that city centre bit again, the pipe work and the opportunity for heat network connectivity is already plumbed into those areas, so that when housing is built there, that can be turned on as soon as the heat network is up and running. And that's again one of the many reasons why we're starting the heat network in the city centre, where you've got waste heat sources, where you've got big organisations to make the most of it, and where we've already got infrastructure in place to help that new housing be low carbon. But yeah, I think there are various reasons why, from a sustainability point of view, we should be very exciting about that city centre housing ambition.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Briar-Stelv. And I feel the heat network is something that we'll be discussing at a later date in here, because it is very exciting. If there are no further questions, then we'll get to the recommendation. It is recommended that the Natural Infrastructure and Growth Scrutiny Panel support and endorse the Plymouth City Council Net Zero Action Plan 2026 to 2029. All in agreement with that, please? Any abstentions? Okay. Anyone against? I think that covered everybody. Fine, perfect. Thank you, and thank you, Ian, as well, and Stuart. Thank you. Right, next item. We are running very late, everybody.
I think we want to go for something.
Thanks, Councillors Brydell. Thank you. That's okay.
It's been very useful, thank you.
Are they going to come in?
Amanda's online.
Hi, Amanda.
Can you hear me?
We can indeed. The rest of the team haven't joined yet, but welcome. We're just doing that last minute shift and shuffle around. Glenn's just gone out to rally people. Conscious of your time as well as ours, that it is very late in the day, Amanda. So as ever, you're somebody that has suffered the graveyard shift of natural infrastructure and growth scrutiny many times. We'll try and keep our questions brief and to the point, and if you can keep the presentation element short and sharp, that'd be excellent, please.
Is Trudy still in the room? I can't actually see the room. It's quite hard to see.
They've not come in yet. Mike Page is just arriving now. We're almost there. And the leader's just arriving. Brilliant. Welcome, and thank you for bearing with us and waiting with the time today. Leader, I'll pass straight over to you to introduce, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a bit of a day today, one thing and another, and a very important day for local government. So I'm here really to talk about what Team Plymouth is achieving for our city. I think that's why I'm here today. And why Plymouth is now firmly established as a nationally significant centre for defence, innovation and inclusive economic growth. And don't take my word for that, because that was a sort of paraphrase of what Steve Reid used today in the House of Commons when he was introducing the LGR decision. He specifically mentioned Plymouth, and he specifically mentioned defence-led economic growth. So I think we've had a stamp of approval for what we're trying to achieve here. So as a Labour administration, we believe economic growth must deliver real benefits to local people. Growth should create good jobs, strengthen communities, attract investment, open up opportunities for future generations, and that's what we're delivering. Working together through Team Plymouth, bringing together local government, business, academia, defence, public sector partners, we've secured national recognition and unprecedented investment for our city. Importantly, this is only the beginning of our journey. And actually, I think it was yesterday, all the days are running into one this week, Luke Pollard, our local MP, but also Defence Minister, was in Scotland announcing huge extra investment in defence at Faslane, at Portsmouth and in Plymouth, at Devonport. In fact, another £3 billion investment coming into Devonport on top of the 4.4 that we've already had announced before. So it's an incredible vote of confidence in our workforce that are there at the moment, but also a vote of confidence in the future workforce, I think. We are proud of the fact that we are now the UK's National Centre for Marine Autonomy. This recognition reflects decades of expertise in maritime industries, positions our city at the forefront of developing technologies, and these technologies will shape the future of our economy, our national security and our environment. Now, our success has been recognised at the highest levels of government, with ministerial sponsorship secured across both the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and the results speak for themselves. We've seen a remarkable 700% increase in private sector inward investment. This is more than just a statistic. It represents confidence in our city. It represents confidence in the sense of new business opportunities, innovation, and better prospects for local people and families, which is what it's really all about for me. Plymouth also secured one of only 5 defence growth deals in the country, Chair, bringing £50 million of investment to support economic growth, skills development and defence-related innovation. And this is going to be particularly important, not just in terms of the defence economy, but I think it's really important in terms of what our skills agenda will bring, for example, in shoring up business that's in other sectors in the city that are fearful of defence-led growth in some sense. So it's really important that the skills plan, the ambitions we've got are a whole economy solution, not just for one part of it. We're only one of 4 places to be invited to develop a place-based business case. Now, this is a government initiative. You know, they're used to individual departments in government making policy decisions and pointing a finger and then say, can you join it up? I mean, if you're lucky, they ask you to join it up. But actually what this is about now is right from the get-go. So in a situation like Plymouth with, it's very easy to say defence-led growth, but what do you need? You need skills, yes. You need people, yes. But you need houses for them to live in, yes. And you also need transport to be able to get them from where they live to where they need to be to work. So that's just some of the examples of how a place-based business case would be more comprehensive and all-embracing, as we try to make sure that the opportunity benefits everybody. And what we're really keen on with this is making sure that nobody's left behind. You know, we've said this before, but you know, there's still a lot of people in Plymouth who are economically inactive, and we want to see more of them back into work if we can. We want to make sure no kids are left behind. You know, that's really important as well. So again, what the place-based business case will do is basically trawl the nether regions of Plymouth to make sure that all the bits we need fixing are fixed. That's what we're trying to do, or as much of it as we can, to basically make a better case for inward investment from the government in future, so we can drive the growth that we want. In addition, there's more. City College has been chosen as just one of 5 locations for a Defence Technical Excellence College. Now, this is really significant because that comes with £10 million worth of funding. But more than the money, it's the status for the college as well, I think. But it's us being in the hub rather than just a spoke in this endeavour. And it's going to make a significant contribution to the way in which we train people in the future. Oh yes, there's more. Through the Local Innovation Partnership Fund, Plymouth has secured 20 million to support innovation, cutting-edge research and collaboration across the Southwest Peninsula. Now, this marine autonomy that we've been talking about is important, but in the Southwest, of course, we're not just about the sea, we're about the land, we're about the air as well. So what the Plymouth University will be able to do in collaboration with other universities around the place is basically to have a cunning plan for air, sea and land autonomy. Some collaboration and joined up thinking there would be fantastic. Oh yeah, there's more. We're also seeing growing national recognition for the importance of marine autonomy through commitments to the future development of autonomy regulation. Now, we had a fantastic visit with Lord Vernon Coker a few weeks ago, and we took him down on a boat, I think, and we took him around the place. But what it was really more important is when we went down to Turnchapel and he met a load of the firms that were there, and they were kind of, you know, I mean, they're doing brilliant work there. Some of them are working out of tents. I mean, it's crazy given the leading edge businesses that are down there. But more importantly, they were able to talk to Vernon about the way in which some of the regulations at sea are actually inhibiting the ability of the companies that we have got here from testing their stuff to the full extent it needs testing. So in the King's speech that came a couple of months ago, yeah, I think it was a couple of months ago, wasn't it? The softening of regulations that we've been arguing for is now going to be coming through, and that's going to be a tremendous fillip to businesses, in particular the businesses we got here, in terms of their ability to really put the foot down on the accelerator. And more importantly, its inclusion at this time is, I think, a recognition of the sector's importance as well. You know, I think that's important. Now, there's more. The Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult is leading a citywide partnership that secured 1.2 million from the Crown Estate to develop a feasibility study for an advanced marine technology centre. Again, this will strengthen Plymouth's position as a world-leading centre of marine innovation. And Babcock's investment over the road in the new National Capability Centre demonstrates long-term confidence in Plymouth. This major project will bring in, we think, around 2,000 workers into the heart of the city, not just buying sandwiches, although, by the way, that's a lot of sandwiches and a lot of money being spent in a retail heart of the city. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's the whole economy will benefit from this. And it's going to help to support the wider regeneration of the city centre. There's more. Through the Office for Students, a further £9 million has been secured for Plymouth, reinforcing our commitment to education, skills and opportunity. None of this, by the way, has happened by chance. I think it's fair to say. It's happened because Team Plymouth shares a common vision for the city. It's happened because organisations across Plymouth have chosen to work together rather than in isolation. And it has happened because we have been relentless in making the case for Plymouth on the national stage. We believe in the power of partnership. We believe in investing in people. We believe in supporting innovation. And we believe that economic growth must benefit everyone. Now, together, we're building a city that is more prosperous, more resilient, more ambitious than ever before. But Plymouth is not simply responding to change. We are helping to lead it. Chair, our message is clear. Plymouth is delivering. Plymouth is growing. Plymouth is innovating. And Plymouth is ready to play a leading role in the future of the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader. Listening to you speak about sort of the collegiate working and the innovation is just so very exciting. You know, the opportunity that it will bring tomorrow, but also that it will bring to future generations. Very, very exciting. If it's acceptable with yourselves and it's acceptable with members, we will skip the presentation and move straight to questions because we've had the papers in advance, so we're all familiar with those, if that's okay with everyone, to manage time better. Okay then, Councillor Goslin, first up.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's fantastic news on the plan for Plymouth. Yeah, it's really encouraging, all these projects going forward and the success we've had in attracting the funding. Can I ask, just on, I was hot on the press of the local government reorganisation plan. How's that going to help Plymouth deliver the gap, the potential workforce gap that's been projected going forward to 2035? How's this going to help us to achieve in closing that gap?
I mean, Steve Reed today, when he talked about Plymouth, talked about driving growth, right? And what was particularly pleasing about what was read out in Parliament today was basically our case, the case that we made along with Exeter in particular, about how cities drive growth, about how the defence of the realm was actually being turned into a strategic opportunity, not just for Plymouth, but actually for the whole region. But how, having not to jump through too many hoops and go over too many hurdles. I mean, if I can give the example for Exeter, for example, they are going to discover what we discovered 25 years ago when we became a unitary authority, that answering to no one except the public actually enables you to drive growth in a way that's not restricted by anybody else's priorities. So, just to give you the example, 25 years ago, I stood upstairs in a meeting where the Plymouth Area Business Council were considering a report to back the only proposal for a growth project in Devon, which was the King's Kerswell bypass. And, you know, that was what was on the table, and nothing to do with Plymouth, no growth to Plymouth. Now, you look at what we've done in the 25 years since, right? You look at all the projects we've done, and the point is, Devon County, you know, it's difficult. This I can't diss my colleagues, although you know I probably have to behind closed doors. But you know, the fact of the matter is they have other priorities as well. You know, the coast and the countryside that they will represent in future, rather than the urban hearts, means that they haven't got to compromise on their priorities as well. So they'll be able to focus on the things that matter to them in the rural areas. We and Exeter and Torbay will get on with the things that drive growth in urban centres. So that's the power of all of this, is that we're going to be able to have, for the first time since local government reorganisation in the 70s, are going to be able to have a relentless urban focus in those areas that can drive growth and unfettered by competing priorities from our rural neighbours. I think that's the easiest way I can come to explain it. But I know that my colleagues in Exeter are thrilled beyond measure because they've felt that they've been held back for a long time, and they've been looking enviously at what Plymouth's been able to do. And unleashing the potential of Exeter will benefit all of us in the southwest.
Supplementary? Perfect. Okay, next we've got Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll reiterate the declaring of my non-pecuniary interest as I am a Crown servant working for the Ministry of Defence on a certain project which incorporates all three of His Majesty's naval bases. Would you agree with me that the blueprint of a local enterprise zone in Fareham, which saw the development of Davis Airfield into Solent Airport, the building of the Innovation Centre incorporated links with local colleges, defence industry, defence establishments and maritime and aeronautical engineering, provides an excellent model which Plymouth could draw inspiration from as we seek to join up education, skills, jobs, defence of the realm, which may also provide a sustainable future for our airport. At the very least, will you investigate that further as Team Plymouth develops?
Apologies for leaving my microphone on there. I hope you heard that. And I mean, the thing is, the case for the airport has to be made because when it was closed 12 years ago, 13 years ago, might be more now, it's actually nearer 15 years ago, it was losing £300,000 a year. Last week, I think there was a news story about Cornwall's airport and how that was costing the local authority £10 million a year to maintain that runway. So aspirationally, I think we should have an airport, and I think it should be opening. Have we got a solution to it being viable? No, we haven't. Are we willing to look at anything that gives us that viability? Of course we are. You know, I think for me, I mean, we weren't in power when the airport was closed, right? If I had been in power at the time, if Labour had been in power, we would never have closed it. Not to save 300 grand, because the opportunity that we've lost, in my view, is bigger than that. But it belongs at the moment, the lease is for somebody else, you know, the situation we're in. And we need to find a viable operator. Should we be in a position to reopen the airport, we will need that. But, you know, I think it's important to say, you know, in my view, with the CASD project and with GB Energy and the Celtic Sea opportunity, the idea of having people come on a 10-hour train journey to come to Plymouth is ridiculous. So, you know, we kind of need it, really, in my view. We kind of need it. And I hope at some point we will be able to do that. But I'd be very happy if you were to point me in the right direction to have a look at Fareham and see what they've done.
Thank you. Any supplementary on that? No? Excellent. We've got Councillor Tyler next.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, Judah, the people in South Hams, obviously with this new LGR, are they going to lose their identity? Are you going to still keep it slightly separate? Because we've got a little logo.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. That's not on subject for this scrutiny panel.
Okay.
So it's a totally
Yeah,
legitimate
'cause you mentioned
question,
it
and
earlier, that's all.
he's talked about LGR, but
Yeah.
I don't think, given where we are.
It was, okay, sorry.
All I would say to you is, and I'd say this to any resident of the South Hams, is you still live in the South Hams, and you still live in Devon, but your council will be Greater Plymouth from April the 1st, 2028. In the same way as people in Plympton used to have a Plympton Urban District Council providing their services, but since 1967, they've had their services provided by Plymouth. But everybody who lives in Plympton still says, I live in Plympton. And people who live in Southway still, I live in Southway. It'll be the same. So we won't be building tower blocks in Brixton, for example.
That's reassuring to hear. No supplementary on that one? No.
It was only more about the logo and a little personal thing, that's all. Yeah.
Perfect.
That was always the council's logo, not the place's logo. So, you know, the council won't exist after the South Hams District Council won't exist. What will be in place for, depending on where you live in the South Hams, you'll either be in Devon Council or you'll be in Greater Plymouth Council. I think that's the way, maybe a bit of Torbay as well. But the place you live, the village you live, will still be in the South Hams of Devon.
If I've read this presentation right, I am assuming that with all that investment that we've had and the pace of innovation for the last 12 months, that so this is a yes or no question to start. I want to make sure I've read this right, that we're on scenario 3 now in terms of the investment. So high growth trajectory, all known and anticipated investments at the naval base, as well as expansions in key employment sectors. We're there, are we? In those 3 scenarios on page, well, I don't know what page I'm on, 145. There's the 3 scenarios? Yeah.
I think we're on 2 rather than 3.
We're on 2, are we?
We think. I think that's right, isn't it?
I think we're on
Yes,
2.
it is. Where we are currently is 1 moving into scenario 2. That's where we feel we are operationally.
Okay, brilliant. So now I can ask my question now. Now I know where we're sitting on that thing. So it's really, really big figures. It's really, really big numbers, and it's really aspirational. Will there at some point be a really easy presentation underneath to show how they all align? Because we were talking earlier about the development in the city centre. We're talking about the city living project, that workshop we're going to go to tomorrow. We're talking about the expansion of 2,000 places at City College Plymouth. And it's trying to sort of align it so that if people are looking in, I keep thinking of this 5-year-old who in 20 years' time is going to be able to live in the city centre, get on a metro, go to a really good college and have had her education, and then got a really, really good job. How it's just understanding what it looks like so that when we're talking about it, we can make it real for people, because these figures are so big, they're so enormous. It's really difficult to articulate them.
It is. But I mean, the opportunity for us is
It's fab. It's fab.
No, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's almost too big, but it's almost too big, but it's not too big as far as I'm concerned. It's the chance of a generation is what it is. I mean, I described this 2 years ago as our Olympic bid. You know, we were building the Olympic Stadium in the dockyard, but it's about the legacy piece around it, making sure that everybody is on the journey. But we've got this opportunity, haven't we? We've got the LGR that we've just been talking about, the refresh or rebuild of the Plymouth local plan as it will become, because it won't be a junk local plan anymore. And the Plymouth plan itself gives us an opportunity, I think, to re-describe, because the Plymouth plan is currently, the one we've currently got, although it was out to 2034, didn't mention Devonport, because we had no idea that Devonport was about to happen. So we've got to find a way of re-describing the journey And that's a really good place to start that. And so, yeah, I think that'll be a place where we talk about a vision for the city. There's a place where everyone's got a role. Everybody's got a future. Everybody's got an opportunity. You know, this is what we've got to do now.
Supplementary?
Supplementary, because when we've got that, it'll then enable Scrutiny to actually behold the different partners to account, because it's not just Babcock, it's not just how, you know, England, it's just not the university, it's a whole load of partners that all have to make sure that they align their plans.
That's a really good point, Councillor Dan. And, you know, I think naysayers might sort of talk around sort of the dependencies on defence investment that could happen off this, but it's been really reassuring to hear you talk around sort of the diversification, innovation and things like that, and the opportunities that they offer. And I think, to Councillor Dan's point, you know, if we can truly capture that story in a really simple way, you know, people will realise that this is real, this is happening, this is here, this is Plymouth, and it really is something that's so fantastic. So just so very exciting. We haven't got any further questions, so if that's okay with everyone, we will go to the recommendations. Yep. We'll go to note the contents of the report and provide feedback to inform the final paper that will be submitted to Cabinet related to funding under Team Plymouth, specifically the Defence Growth Deal, place-based business case and other related initiatives. So this one is to note, ladies and gents. Okay. Thank you so much all for coming. Apologies that the slot was so very short for you all, but it is so very exciting what you talked to us about today. Thank you. So before the rest of you escape, we've got work programme. Elliot, do you want to quickly take us through that? Anything to note there?
Thank you, Chair. Members will see the items provisionally scheduled for our next meeting, so I won't run through them one by one. Would welcome any additions, and we'll sit down at the agenda set and work that out, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. And then last but not least, the action log.
Sorry, Chair, I had a comment.
Oh, sorry,
I'm so sorry. Only because there's a bit of duplication between flood risk management and then the request for a select committee looking at the same issues. I wondered if it makes sense to squish those together just into select committee. And then the other suggestion I had for a site visit was, in light of the motion about South West Treatment Works, whether we could get in a site visit to one of them.
Both really good suggestions. So I guess the piece that we'll need to consider with combining the flooding is how much space we've got in the calendar, if we can put them in so we give it credit, because what we don't want is where we have these big items like this today and we're having to compress them into,
yeah, I think that's why my
15
suggestion
minutes.
would be that it's moved into the select committee spot, because it feels like they'll cover the same ground, so it might as well get that dedicated space.
Yeah, everybody happy with that? Yeah, getting nods there. Okay, we'll take that as an action. Anything else with the action log, Elliot?
Action log, both are completed, Chair, and we'll update those from today, collate them and send them around. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for going the extra mile and doing the extra time. Really appreciate it. And we will see you at the next meeting. Thank you.